Hey, it's Hugh Hewitt, and when I want to know what's going on with the Cavs, the Browns, and the Tribe, I tune into Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Catch every UFC pay-per-view live in full HD at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And away we go. Hey, radio voice guy. You know what else you can do at Harry Buffalo, North Olmsted today? Around 7:10 p.m., you can go watch the Indians and some opening day baseball. I mean, no slight to the great UFC action, but that's not happening today, baby. It is opening day Major League Baseball. Yeah. I know yesterday was, but for us, it's today. For Indians fans worldwide, today we kick it off, the 2015 championship season. Hey, that's what it's technically called by baseball, but I think it's going to be such an enjoyable next few months here in Northeast Ohio and beyond here. So many things going on. It's all going to come together. And speaking of coming together, how about over the weekend? I don't want to jump ahead here. We'll dive into it in a minute. The Indians continuing the pattern of the last few years, throwing themselves into the 90s, baby, going back to the well of that formula that led to the core of such a beloved era of Indians baseball. The Indians following that formula again here as after a few years in a row of some monetary investments, they've added a couple more. Couple of the key ones, if you ask some people, Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, both in the fold, long-term deals here with the Indians. There's club options. We'll talk about all of that, but the Indians, they continue the last few years of locking up the core. I'll talk about it in a minute, of the totals and all of that different stuff. Quite an investment and quite a thing to talk about when it's so easy for so many people to go the opposite way when it comes to the Cleveland Indians ownership. We're going to talk about all of that. Man, it is opening day. It is not only opening day, it is national championship time as well. And down goes Kentucky, baby. Down goes Kentucky, 38 and done. And Wisconsin and Bo Ryan now, they head on to the national championship game against Duke. Charles was giving me a hard time here before we went on the air, sending me a message, one of the good listeners of the show, going back and listening to Friday's show. I told you guys already about this college basketball thing with me. So you know what? I'm gonna disable the archiving. I think from now on, when we talk, if I make any kind of a college basketball statement, I'm going to disable archiving. If you're not listening live, it's going away. You're not going to be able to go back and pull these tapes up anymore. Damn me, leaving these evidence, these pieces of evidence, just exposing myself out there for you guys to go pull up the shows and throw it back at me. No, I'm just kidding. I straight up told him, I said, I never pretended otherwise, my friend. But we're going to talk about all of that stuff here in a little bit. We got a lot to get into. Cavs, Bulls, playoff previews. There's, so much to do, guys. So you guys ready to do it or what? I know you are, because you're here. I'm here. Let's rock and roll. Lock and load. Off and running. Another week in the books and going here on the Sports Fix. Welcome in, you guys. I'm your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc. Jerry Myers kicking off another week as we do each and every day. Weekdays live at noon here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. If you're listening on delay, you can tune in live Monday through Friday on sites like TuneIn, TuneIn's radio app worldwide. Shout out to those of you listening live across the Spreaker Radio Network and their website and mobile apps, on Mixlr and their digital app, on our website, thesportsfix.net, your home base, your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports. Hit us up live on all of those sites and welcome in if you do each and every day on digital delay. There are so many more, thousands of you guys around the world that listen 24/7 on sites like iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes and Stitcher Radio and SoundCloud and CarPlay and all of the new sites that continue to add us to. And I'll tell you what, man, just I don't know, again, I said this on Friday's show, I've pinpointed it down to a couple of the newer sites that distribute our content through different networks electronically that I don't even know all of the destinations, because I've seen a recent uptick in some of the digital delay, different from our standard base. So clearly there's some movement out there going, whatever it is, wherever these sites are, and hey, hit us up. I'm going to give you the info in just a minute. Let me know where you learned about the show, how you got your fix, because I find it amazing as I uncover these places, as you guys hit me up, all of these different places where you get your fix. I'm like, yeah, man, I am all about it. International, that just gets me to this day. I mean, I'm just saying, it's a credit to Cleveland or the show or whatever you want to say, but I still think it's amazing that there's giant groups. I'm not talking about a person, an outlier here and there. There's like one listener in like outer Mongolia or something. Explain that one. But there are large pockets of listeners in quite a bit in Europe. I mean, and you know what? I understand that because I know that American exports are big in the UK, and not just the UK, but a lot of different countries, because it's not just the UK. We've got but several pockets there, up in Canada as well, in Africa. I'm telling you, some amazing places in the Middle East to where you go, man, that is too significant to be a statistical anomaly, and I find that amazing. I always joke and I say, man, somewhere there's a tribe in deepest, darkest Africa. They don't speak English, except they can say J-Rocc and the Sports Fix somehow. I'm telling you. But anyways, thank you guys wherever you're at, listening to us, all the places. Thank you guys. I'm having some fun. I'm feeling good, if you can't tell, because did I mention, by the way, it's this thing they like to call opening day in Major League Baseball, and that has got me feeling good. Hey, you guys, if you're feeling good, be a part of the show. You know the deal. Phones are open. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535 is the number to call. The phones are open. Facebook and Twitter, social media, Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. And as I said, phone lines open here to kick things off. 216-539-7535. We have got opening day baseball to talk about. Not just that, though. Before we get in, and you know what? Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan is going to be here in a little bit. We've got a ton of things to get into. Of course, I'm going to dive into the basketball action from over the weekend in just a minute. The pro side, anyway, because we've already established that. We've got a lot of things to do, but I want to just take a minute, especially because I have noticed, I mean, you have to, by the way, where I'm going to go with this. I think even the staunchest, we always joke the Dolans are cheap groups. And listen, I'm not one of those guys that says there's not, some fact and some fiction and all of that mixed into that. It's not like they're just making that up. And I've had my own feelings about that. Trust me, from time to time, I'm right there with you guys on that, and we get to talking about it here on the show. But you have to hit all sides. You have to talk in fairness, and in my opinion, you've got to give some credit to the Cleveland Indians ownership, because for all the talk, and listen, of course they are playing small budget, small market baseball. They're playing money ball. They're following the formula that the teams have to follow. And it frustrates the heck out of the casual fan. And I totally get all of that. and I don't agree with every move that the Indians have made. There's things they should have done, in my opinion, that they didn't, and there's things that they've done that I wouldn't have done. But at the same time, there's things they've gotten right that a lot of people didn't see. We've given credit ad nauseum to their ability, regardless of what you think of what happened with Michael Bourn and Nick Swisher and those signings, of what they found, though, in trades, being able to uncover guys like one of the guys they signed this weekend, Corey Kluber, being able to find all of these pieces, Michael Brantley, so on and so forth, Jan Gomes, and turn them over in trades, find other teams' prospects. But I'm not even going in that realm today. Coming off the news this past weekend that the Cleveland Indians were able to come to terms with not only Corey Kluber, but it appears with the semantics and the physical left to be done, but with Carlos Carrasco as well. Two huge pieces here of the future of your potential future pitching staff for years to come. And Corey Kluber, listen, we've talked about the ups and downs of what the Indians should and could do, keeping him under the terms of what he had, being able to follow the arbitration path for a few years. He had a long time until he even hit his free agency. I mean, there was a ton of time here. He would have been 33 years old before he would have hit straight free agency, and the Indians could have played it by ear for a few years. There's a lot of things that they could have done that they would have been well within their rights to do, although it may not have served them well long term. The Indians jumped in with both feet when it comes to Corey Kluber. 5-year contract. Now, this one's been announced by the team. This is official, even though the Carrasco deal is still being hammered out, the physical being taken. But the Indians and Corey Kluber, 5 years through 2019. Then club options for 2020 and 2021. And when you combine the dollar amounts of what they signed just in those two guys, Carrasco, and what's being reported as far as with Carrasco and with Corey Kluber coming through, I mean, look, that is guarantees of nearly $58 million, nearly $60 million. And so now I'm going to go back to this for all the talk. And again, I'm with you guys on the Dolans, this and that, and the moves they have and haven't made. And so frustrated. If I wasn't bald, I'd be pulling it out too. I understand it. But listen to this number. At the same time, yes, flush with cash that came in from the sale of the network, from the increased money throughout baseball, from revenue sharing, all of that. But since the beginning of 2013, since the signing of Michael Bourn and Nick Swisher, the cheap Dolans, the Cleveland Indians ownership have committed over $250 million to just 8 players in long-term contracts. 8 players. That's a core grouping. Say what you will about the Nick Swisher. Say what you will about the production of Michael Bourn so far. Look at that commitment again. $254-ish million on a core grouping of 8 players. And I mean, think that the first thing that I said, and I talked to a lot of you guys over the weekend about this just on Facebook and Twitter, is the 90s. You go back to the formula of what the Indians did. That is what the Indians did then. They identified their core of players. They went out there and put their grouping together, and they bought out free agent years, and they made commitments to guys that weren't necessarily worth it. And, Terry Pluto points this out in Glory Days of Tribetown, the book he wrote with Tom Hamilton. We've talked about a bit here on the show. They didn't get them all right when they did it in the 90s either. There are some guys that were in that grouping of 10, 12 players that the team identified that turned out to not work out. It turned out to get paid a lot of money to do not a whole lot. But in general, the core of that team was locked up. And we've talked about how you can't do that nowadays. But there you go. Dan Wismar is going to join us later. You just can't. But they did again. And, and you know what? Hold on a second. I've got Bruce, who's the Indians guy here in the chat room. And I'm sorry, I can't understand this. Here's a guy who should be like, yeah, all of you can sit back and watch the Indians doing it the right way. And instead, he seems upset that the Indians have committed to a guy after one good. Listen, you either jump in the pool and make commitments to these guys, or you complain that the Dolans won't spend $150 million to sign a guy when he's in his free agent years. I mean, that's the thing. You can't have it both ways. Either the Indians are going to take risks and sign guys with commitments now, guys like Corey Kluber, guys like Carlos Carrasco, or in 3 years, all of you will be complaining, what will they get in a lame trade for Corey Kluber after he wins his second or third Cy Young? Is that what you guys want to do? Do you guys want to spend 2017 instead of enjoying perhaps a run of a couple more good? Maybe by then they're 4, 5, 6 winning seasons in a row. God forbid we can't have that. Instead, we need to hurry up and get to the point where we can quickly trade off guys because they're too expensive. I understand the woe is me mindset, but that got me a little bit upset because I'm feeling good, man. This to me is a sign. Say what you want. The Indians have identified their core group of guys. Jason Kipnis, Michael Brantley, Jan Gomes, Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco. For good, bad, or ugly, Michael Bourne, Nick Swisher. These guys, they have made their commitment, and you cannot say that the Indians in this aspect have not put their money where their mouth is. And I mean, really, there are only two ways to do it in Major League Baseball. Do this, or you do what the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Dodgers have done. Because what they've done, they'll spend $254 million on one player. And that's what some people come back at me with against the Indians as well. That's a one signing for the Tigers. Well, that's great. That's the Tigers. And as much as I wish, please, I know these guys are making money hand over fist and not willing to lose money. And I can't argue that point. It doesn't matter. I don't care what I know, what you know, what Johnny, this guy, that guy, sports talk guy knows. It doesn't matter. They are what they are, and they're doing what they're doing. And if this is the way the Indians play baseball, then this was a hell of a commitment by the Indians. And this, to me, is something to celebrate because the Indians, hey, guess what? Do you guys forget that they spent $8 million on Brett Myers a few years ago? $8 million for a run-of-the-mill, nothing. Gavin Floyd, how much money to sit on the disabled list? Now, I don't know how much of that's guaranteed, whatever. I don't care. My point is $7, $8, $9 million in today's market. Those are run-of-the-mill, get 1 or 2 500 season out of them guys. That's what you get for that kind of money. That's what you get for that kind of money. Carlos Carrasco, a 4-year extension, somewhere between $21, $22 million. Do the math. That's $5.5 million a year. So in there. I'm not being exact. I don't have the exact dollar figures in front of me. Just rough estimate. Even if he's a middle of the road starter for the next 4 years, that is cheaper than you're going to pay a free agent middle of the road starter. That's my point, is that I don't believe that the Indians made crazy deals. I'm plain and simple. I think that the Indians made incredibly thoughtful commitments here, and I'm no way am I going to sour on this. If you want to, good luck. You're going to enjoy a very long season because I'm sure you're going to pick apart every day of everything that the Indians do. Either that, or you'll spend the first 6 months telling me it's a long season, and then you'll spend the last 30 days complaining that the Indians didn't do anything at the trade deadline or whatever it is. You can't make some people happy. I'm incredibly happy because today is opening day. Indians baseball is here, and I believe that the Indians are following the closest. I get it. I want to see how Bruce in the chat room says he wants to see how it works out. So do I. That's not my point. My point is you don't get the crystal ball. When you're making a commitment to a core group of guys in the future, that's what you do. You are projecting into the future. The risk of not doing that is that they get paid, and we've watched one guy after another go off to get paid. You know what I'm saying? To me, as long as you're not signing guys to contracts that are going to completely hamstring your roster. Now, Swisher and Bourne, those do fit in that category, and that's my point. Those should be the biggest point for you guys, because look at what you pay guys in free agency. So unless you want to continually have a AAA starting lineup and starting pitchers and hope that 6 or 7 of them can have a good enough season that we can play 85, 86 win baseball every year, okay. But if you're trying to get from there to where the Indians want to get to, that is what you do. I understand that there's risks here, but to me, the risk is much bigger on the back end, because then you just end up spinning your wheels for a decade. Do you not see how quickly an entire decade can go by? The last time the Indians did this, they were trying to identify a core from that group with Sizemore and Hafner and those guys. And deals went bad. It didn't work out. The team fell apart. The Dolans jumped out of the water for a while. They rebuilt things from the ground up. That is the point that I'm making, is that there's only, now which way it's going to go is up to how these guys develop. And that's the other thing, is I can hear you. And although Carrasco still, like I said, even if he is the Carlos Carrasco that he's been, I mean, he's going to cost $5 million to somebody down at the end of this in the next few years anyway. So I don't think it's an exorbitant contract. But you look at most of these guys on that list, and to me, I'm not a guy that's in the throw Jason Kipnis. I think Jason Kipnis is a core player. Michael Brantley speaks for himself. Jan Gomes. So to me, they're also commitments that seem to be well-founded. And I'm not on this one good season thing for Corey Kluber either, because I think Corey Kluber had a good initial season when he got here. He had an unbelievable follow-up season. So to me, it's much less of a one and done as much as everything he's done so far, he has lived up to following up to the next one, and then up to the level, and so on and so forth. And so from those guys and what you've seen, I think that's the right group of guys to make that commitment to. And I'm telling you guys, we have to see how it plays out over the next several seasons. But I mean, that's how you now have an entire core group of this team. This is the 90s formula. For everybody that says you can't do it again, I'm with that. But this is the closest you're going to get, because this is that formula. They have got, hey, nobody knew for sure how good Carlos Baerga was going to be. Nobody, yeah, there were some no-brainers. Manny Ramirez, everybody knew what a great natural hitter he was coming up out of high school. But, it wasn't a no-brainer that all of those guys were going to end up working out for the Indians in the 90s, or for them to make those commitments, which when you look at the dollar amounts now, it's so crazy when you talk about that. But still, the point is, and you know what, going back to, now I pulled up here, looking back at that, look at some of the names where the Indians got them wrong. Scott Scudder, Dave Otto, Jack Armstrong. These were guys along with Baerga, Lofton, Bell, Manny, Tomey, Alomar, Nagy. Those were all that group of players. So you had 3 or 4 that didn't, but you had a large group that did, and that became the base. And again, of all those guys, I mean, Kenny Lofton. Yeah, John Hart knew what he saw, but I mean, they got him for Eddie Taubensee. You know what I mean? It's not like that was a Francisco Lindor level prospect. Same as I said, for every Manny Ramirez, and Jim Tomey developed into much more, even though he had a ton of potential. Charlie Nagy. Those are guys that when those commitments were made, I'm sure people, especially if we had all the social media and the instant analysis and sports talk that we had now, would have probably been, man, the Indians are crazy. What is this John Hart guy doing? This is Cleveland. But that became the core. And I was talking about Terry Pluto. You look at the article that he did talking about some of this here today. You look at the Indians grouping, that main group of players. It's here for, at minimum, 2017. I mean, that is several seasons to go, and that also makes it easier to get additional players and pieces to come here. That stability, knowing that, hey, okay, you know what? I know it's Cleveland, and I'm not sure about this, but I know that this team's going to be, you know what I mean? It makes it much easier. I'm not saying that they're going to flock to Cleveland because we signed Corey Kluber and Carlos Carrasco. Not at all. But I'm just saying, this is as close to that formula as you're going to get. Now, did they identify the right guys? We get to hopefully have some fun, because I guess if it goes the other way, it's not as enjoyable. But we could hopefully enjoy the next few years and watching and seeing how many of these guys do develop and turn into this. But you have identified a core. They have identified a core. And they've gone out there and made a commitment. And if anything, I mean, you know that the Indians and their ownership does due diligence before they make these commitments. I mean, they would not make a similar commitment last year to Justin Masterson in the same situation, and everything's to its own. But there's been several instances over the years here that they have not made that commitment. So they haven't done it for just everybody. It's not like every one hot prospect comes up and they throw $20-30 million at every one of them. So I feel confident that they feel confident in the guys that they've identified. But to me, I mean, you can't have it both ways. If they're not going to spend $245-50 million on a one or two player deal, then you have to identify a group and spend it on a core and hope that lives up because you're with it now. That's part of the commitment. They're giving up big money to stay with you for guaranteed money now. You're giving up guaranteed money that they may not earn to hope that you don't have to pay them that super big money and watch them walk away later. And, you know, with Kluber and Carrasco, again, their deals are good enough to me that I'm good with that rather than 2 or 3 years from now be playing we know the Indians are going to have to trade Corey Kluber at the trade deadline. It's just a matter of what we see it every year. Those teams, they spend the whole first half on trade watch and go, well, what's going to be the best deal that this team can get for this guy or that guy, because you know they're going to have to trade him because they can't afford to keep him. We've done that so many times. It's a miserable existence. And then you got to wait 5, 6, 7 years for it to pay off again. And hopefully then you find your Michael Brantleys and these guys come through, and you've got to sit through Jason Knapps and Matt Laportas to get your Carlos Carrasco to hopefully come through. And this is more enjoyable than that. Coming on the air feeling good today is much more enjoyable than going, well, enjoy your 15 starts with Corey Kluber because he'll be traded by the trade deadline because the Indians can't afford to keep him. Now they don't have to worry about it. And I'll tell you, he's one I feel good about. I really do. I'm not one of these guys that says, well, I think. Now, I don't know that he does what he did last year. That's goodness. You show me that you can do that again, and now we're really special. But even if he falls back to the pack a little bit, I like Corey Kluber. I like how he works. And I think that he's going to be a good long-term investment for the Indians. You know, we'll see though. We're going to talk a ton about this. Dan Wismar is going to join us here in a little bit. We are far from done. I just wanted to start off right off the bat talking about that because I've been talking to a lot of you guys over the weekend. And by the way, hope you all had a happy, safe, blessed Easter, you guys, this past weekend. And but talking to some of you guys about this here, I mean, that's the general feeling. That's why I'm shocked at Brucey over here, because some of the hardcore, the mayor, the Indians, you know, they show up in the bus and they did something wrong, man. And I'm just giving him a hard time, but he's definitely on that side of the fence. And he's like, hey, man, that's kudos to the Dolans for making the commitment. And that's what I go back to. Kudos to the Indians for making the commitment. You can't criticize them for not spending money and then criticize them for spending money at the same time. I know some people will find a way to do it, but I do not understand that at all, man. To me, this is a hats off day for the Cleveland Indians, and we haven't even played baseball yet. So that being said, let's hold tight. We're going to get back to the Indians talk here in just a little bit when Dan Wismar joins us. Let's talk while we're talking playoffs, and I talked about those good feelings that are going to be coming. I think that this baseball season is going to be a big beneficiary coming right off of the wave of some Cavaliers playoff basketball for the first time since 2010, getting ready to experience it. Although I got to be honest, not going to be Debbie Downer, but everybody's on Joakim Noah and what he said, but he has a point. The Cavaliers' fourth quarter yesterday, to me, for as awesome as hitting them crazy buzzer beaters and everything was, that's got to be cleaned up, because if you do that against a team as playoff experienced as the Bulls, if you do that against them, you'll lose games in the playoffs that you should win. So let's talk about that, though. Good, bad, and ugly. Oh, man, was there some unbelievable shots yesterday. J.R. Smith, Kyrie Irving, I mean, the buzzer beaters in every quarter. I don't know if that's even ever been done before, but J.R. Smith is trying to set a record for the most free throws shot by a human being, I think, ever. Let's talk about all of that. Cavaliers, another weekend. We're getting closer. 5 games left till we hit the playoffs. Cavs and the Bulls yesterday. What did you think about it? We're going to talk about it when we come back. Then we'll get Dan Wismar in on the conversation. We've got an NCAA championship game coming up. Indians opening day, Monsters, Gladiators, all kinds of stuff to talk about. When we get back, let's keep it rolling. Let's talk a little Cavaliers hoops next here on the Sports Fix.
Indian fever, be a believer with the Cleveland Indians. Indian fever.
This is the Sports Fix.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Hey, call me Mr. Pig!
We'll call you whatever you like, as long as we can call you a fan of the Sports Fix.
The wait is finally over, guys. Baseball season is here at last, and the excitement continues all season long. Here we go again at DraftKings.com, the official daily fantasy partner of Major League Baseball. Daily fantasy means no season-long commitments, just instant cash, instant gratification. Why wait until the end of the season to claim victory when you can win huge cash every day? At DraftKings, it's like a brand new season every time you play. Just select 2 pitchers and 8 position players, stay under your salary cap, and you could be on your way to an enormous payday. Last year, Peter from Colorado won $1 million at DraftKings in one day just playing fantasy baseball. Hundreds of thousands of fantasy sports fans, just like you and I, have already cashed in at DraftKings. Now it's your turn, baby. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and enter promo code SPREAKER to play for free. You could win part of the $300 million. Yes, I said $300 million in prizes being awarded this baseball season. Use promo code SPREAKER for free entry now at DraftKings.com. DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Here we go, bring it on in. It's time now. It's all city. We got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us. Define what we're about. Let's get it going.
Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor will because of this city. We owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They're going to support us, man, but we got to give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is going to come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go. Bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Hard work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. That's right. No more Mr. Nice Guy. Baseball season starting, playoff time. I'm getting in playoff mode, baby. Bring it on, Noah. Bring it on, baby. But, hey, you know what? Welcome back. J-Rocc with you here. Welcome back to the Sports Fix. Dan Wismar is going to join me here in just a little bit here. We'll pick up a conversation with him about all of this stuff. But he sent me a note during the break, and I was going to get this way with him anyway, but I'll drop it out now because we were on it before we segue off into basketball. My man Bruce, look at the difference, by the way, here when we're talking, because I was mentioning contract numbers. Talked about the 20+ million there extension with Carlos Carrasco, 5 years, a little short of $39 million for the Indians and Corey Kluber, which, I mean, do the math. That's less than $8 million a year, and that's good if he's a 500 pitcher. I mean, you guys were gonna, man, I would have too. Actually, I would have paid that to a guy like Masterson too. But I'm just saying that's that level contract there. Not what he wanted, but that's what you pay that level guy in 2015. So, and that's if the bottom falls out. But look at the difference, as Dan said, compared to the previous Cy Young Award winner, previous to Corey Kluber. What was that contract that he just signed with the Nationals? Was that 7 years to the tune of $200 and almost $10 million? Literally a season and about 10 starts into the next season of Max Scherzer. That gets you 5 years of Corey Kluber. I know that there's more of a track record. I'm just saying. You get one season and about 10 additional starts from Max Scherzer for what it cost you for 5 years of Corey Kluber. And yes, you could have. And what's funny is, the Indians could have taken their time. And I wouldn't have been against one more year. But they could have. But then those same people, if that goes south and then Corey Kluber, remember, I'm just saying, if the situation goes a certain way, then it was the Dolan's fault for not making the commitment and for hedging their bets, and they shouldn't have been monkeying around with arbitration time and all of that stuff, because that, to me, is where that argument goes if it goes the other way. So that's where I'm at with that, you guys, and we'll pick up with that with Dan when he comes in. I just wanted to jump in because he sent me that there during the break. Welcome back to the show here. Talk a little Cavs and Bulls here with the Sports Fix as we keep rolling. Facebook, Twitter, you keep it going with us. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Again, Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, The Sports Fix at AOL.com. Talk to me about yesterday, the Cavaliers, and I didn't know David Copperfield was at the Q yesterday. I could have swore that it was a Cavaliers basketball game, man, because they were pulling off some David Copperfield type stuff there in that one, man. You guys, I'll tell you what, and really, for 3/4 of that game especially, man, boy, that was just something unbelievable. But for all the talk afterwards about how, well, if this was the play, and Noah came out and said, we think that in the playoffs it would turn out differently. All I'm saying is that the fourth quarter, I can understand that a bit because the Cavaliers definitely. But at first I was willing to chalk it up to a heat check. When you hit a buzzer beater at the end of the first, second, and third quarter, when you're hitting half quarters, when you're doing those things, I get the heat check thing. And it really, the whole fourth quarter, for a while anyway, at least the first half of it, felt like a big heat check. And LeBron was on the bench, and you could see that he did not necessarily plan on getting back in the game at that point. I think he was hoping he wouldn't have to. And then when Chicago got it back down to, seven points or so, that was when LeBron got up and then had to come back in. And then it was a game down at the down to the end, and it came down to within just a handful of points, a couple of possessions. And so I get the argument there. Tom Thibodeau was making it as well, that you take away those shots that the Cavaliers made, and then perhaps things go differently there. But that's being said, that's fixable, because you address that very simply by not going out there and making those mistakes, by not going out there and playing that fourth quarter the way that the Cavaliers did. Before we get to that, before we get a little critical there down the stretch, again, what were we watching for a minute there? I mean, Kyrie Irving doing his thing. J.R. Smith, Bruce just pointed out there in the chat room, unbelievable. Hits that shot, sits down, gets up, takes the bow, and deservedly so. On those nights there, sometimes I would think if you're the Chicago Bulls on a night like that, you chalk it up, man, and you say, well, on this night it's just not happening. But again, the fourth quarter shows why you don't do that too early. But up until that point, man, I mean, just a great game. Kevin Love, good. Mozgov, you know what? I think yesterday's game, one of the things that was most interesting to me was, I remember earlier in the season, as a matter of fact, I remember coming on the show. It had to have been the early part of the season. Yeah, because it was obviously before the trades. It wasn't even after a Cavs and Bulls matchup. It was after I watched the Bulls play. I think I watched them play a late night TNT game or something like that. May have watched them play the Lakers, Clippers, I think I watched. It was a West Coast game. But anyways, I watched it, and I came on here the next day, and I said, boy, man, I could see a lot of matchup problems here, especially bigs, size-wise here, that Chicago could use to exploit against the Cavs. I liked what I was seeing out of Mirotic, and obviously Gasol's been a double-double machine all season there in his first year for them. We know about Noah. But the trades, I mean, really, to me, watching that game yesterday, I started to see that get nullified a bit when you saw Mozgov was all over, man, on the boards. And I saw some really encouraging things, man, and Kevin Love getting back in there, able to play in yesterday's game. It's a lot of encouraging things, along with the craziness with the shots and all of that. But I go back now, let's go to the downside of it. I go back to that fourth quarter because I can totally agree with the sentiment there about how that team, the way they played that fourth. You do that in the playoffs against a playoff-tested team like Chicago, and you will get bit. They will catch you at the end of a game, and they will beat you. And really, as good as the Cavaliers have played, as much as we've raved and reviewed these, talked about the blowouts and the big double-digit victories and all of that, unless the world turns on its ear, that's not, even if the Cavaliers have a great playoff run, even if they win a championship, I highly doubt they're going to be steamrolling teams left and right at that point. The games get shortened, the scores get lowered, things get a lot more pressure packed. So, at that point, the margin of error becomes less, even if you're the best team out there and you lose a game here or there, you let something slip away. I mean, really, it can throw out a whole season's worth of work. And that's the one thing I've kind of gone back to all season with the Cavaliers is the reliance. But then how do you say this? How do I even finish this sentence? The reliance on the three-pointer. When you're continually hitting 40+% of them, when you're out there just nailing from three-point at that, as LeBron says, they want to live on layups and three-pointers. That's where they want to thrive, and that's where they're going to thrive with the way that they play. And it's hard to argue that, but you see the fourth quarter, and but see, there's a difference between taking a lot of threes and chucking up a lot of threes. That was part of it too, was I think they just started to feel that they could make anything from anywhere. And I mean, why wouldn't you after some of the things that the Cavs had done through three quarters? But there was just bad offense being played in the fourth quarter. It wasn't just missed shots. Now, there were some that were good passes, good looks, wide open misses. But there was a lot more, especially from J.R. Smith. Remember at one point he was at like 7 of 9, 7 of 10, something like that. And he missed 3 or 4 out of 5 in a row. But they were bad. They were quick chucks. And there was several of those. And all of a sudden, like I said, that's when guys had to come back off the bench, had to get out there and get back in the game. And LeBron talked about it after the game. And I go back to, this is not sky is falling, woe is me. This is correctable stuff. This is, learn from it. And that's the good thing. That's one of those lessons to be learned and taken from these final 5 games of the season. 5 games left, and I think the one victory, it looks like the Cavaliers will officially lock up the second seed. They got the 50-win threshold here, past that here, 8th time in franchise history, and so, you now you get that locked up, get that second seed, and start looking. But this was, to me, a great way for that game to go because, yeah, you got your victory. You kept your winning streak, get the queue going, but you learned some things about your team, and you saw some ways. You got to remember, that's a shorthanded still squad on the other side as well. Could be a different team when you meet the Bulls in the playoffs, potentially, if that was to happen. So you definitely want to learn from that. I think that was one of the good things to take from that. But, man, I mean, all right, now I'm going back to the other three quarters. What in the world is some of that stuff we were seeing? I mean, seriously, I mean, the players on the court were looking at each other literally like, hey, I can't explain it any better than you can, man. And it is scary fun. I'm just saying, the playoffs are going to be a different animal. But while we're enjoying opening day here and we're having a good day, man, when they do that kind of stuff, they just, there's moments of this season, and that's why I keep reminding you, saying this all the time, outside of the final destination of this, stuff like the first three quarters and those buzzer beaters and those crazy shots and J.R. Smith taking a seat and then taking a bow and all that stuff, if you don't realize it, that stuff doesn't happen all the time. We've seen some bad basketball here too, and even when we've seen good basketball in the past, it hasn't been. We're seeing stuff at different points in time that are just, it's just next level stuff that as a sports fan you'll go back and remember. I think more even than whether they win a championship or not at the end of this season. 20 years from now, people will be telling grandkids about the season LeBron came back. It won't be soiled by how it ends at the end, and they'll tell about the night they traded for this alien named J.R. Smith who came in from another planet and hasn't stopped shooting three-pointers since he shot his first three-pointer on the bus from New York, and he hasn't stopped since. But he makes them, and it just, there's not a shot. He meant it when he said there's not a spot on the floor that is not his spot. He absolutely meant that, and I think we're seeing that there, man. But stuff like that, stuff like the three, and if any of you guys, let me know. I mean, can you even recall, even if it's not like, official stat nerd stuff, can anybody recall buzzer beaters at the end of each quarter like that, the way that happened? Just unbelievable stuff. And so that's what I mean. Those are special moments. Kyrie not back to back, but multiple 50 plus. I mean, LeBron James has never had a teammate do that, and Kyrie's done it twice here this season. I mean, that's special stuff too, on a team that is centered around LeBron James, that you're watching the development of Kyrie Irving the way it does. That's all. When I say there can be no bad end to this playoff run, to me, that's where I'm at. And I know some of you are saying, oh, I disagree, and I guess I could give you, okay, you get swept in the first round, maybe that's a nasty. But even then, I honestly believe the disappointment of whatever ending, if it would not be a championship, would so quickly be soothed over by the stuff we're talking about right now. By us sitting around, almost like when you sit around at the funeral and you tell the happy stories, you'd sit around after the season and go, yeah, but man, when's the last time we saw this? Or we've never seen this, or etc. and so forth. But that being said, I'm not in the mood to sit around the funeral and talk about the happy moments. I'd rather sit around the celebration, baby. And I do believe that things like the fourth quarter yesterday can help that happen much more than the other stuff, much more than the crazy shots, and much more than all that stuff. Learning your lessons from that fourth quarter, putting your foot down on the throat of teams, not letting because I'm telling you, they almost got bit yesterday by a shorthanded Bull squad. You will get bit in the playoffs, and that's all it takes. I mean, the margin of error in the playoffs, even between the best team and the worst team, is very slight in most cases, you guys. So that, to me, again, when I've been talking about challenges and all of that, and I think I heard some of the yesterday during the game, I was listening to the commentators there talking about what you want. No, it was after the game. I was listening to Brad Sellers, I think, talk after the game, And by the way, for those of you guys that watch the local post game, is it just me, or does News Channel 5 have no respect for Brad Sellers whatsoever? They played bumper music while he was talking, like not bumper music, like advertisements while he was talking. At one point, they just cut him off. At the end of the show, he was in mid-sentence and they just cut him off. And it wasn't like it was at the top of the hour. It was a weird time, like 39 minutes after the hour or something like that. But they just cut him off. If any of you guys noticed that too, they just had no respect. They don't mess with Andy Baskin because he's the sports director. But boy, there's all kinds of technical problems while Brad Sellers is doing his breakdown after the game. But anyways, they were talking about that same thing. The question that I said the other day is, do you want the easier team? And Brad Sellers is like, I want the easy opponent. I want the 4 or 5 wins and get out, 4 or 5 game series and get out. I don't want to struggle in the first round. I disagree. I want to go right in the fire. Although there are other people that will tell you the opposite, that sometimes you get beat down and wore out early, and that lets another team take advantage of you, and that's true too. I don't want the Cavs to get taken to 7 games and have guys pulling hamstrings and struggle to survive in the first round, but I wouldn't mind a 5-game series where every single game comes down to the final couple of minutes. The final 5 minutes decides them all. That's the type of playoff seasoning that you need to get in that first round of the series, And I wouldn't mind if they got bit in one of those early games, because that's what reminds you not to let that stuff happen again. So that's just, again, and seeing these tests along the way, whether it was the Miami Heat, whether it's here, and you've got teams coming up, by the way, that are still alive. So 5 games left to go here. We'll talk some more here. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this in just a minute. I want to get Dan Wismar's thoughts on all this hoop stuff from over the weekend. Kentucky goes down, got a national title game, got some Cavs national television action, and by the way, it's Indians opening day. So let's take a break. Let's come right back and pick up the conversation with my man Dan Wismar. Talk about that Cavs game with the Bulls. Talk about these playoffs coming. And again, those good vibes that are going to just continue to roll right from Cavaliers playoff time into opening day, the first stretch of the Tribe season, and just hopefully keeps it going right on down. I'm telling you. And it's definitely going to be an enjoyable summer here downtown Cleveland. I can tell you, you just remember that I told you way before it happened, man. No, I'm feeling good, guys. Let's talk about it when we come back with Dan Wismar after the news here on the Sports Fix. Don't go anywhere, baby. We'll be right back.
Look at her. She's a bad man, just as fine as she can be. Hey, she's a bad man, pajama.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into
The Sports Fix. We'll be right back. It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Today on Save on Taxes, we ask 100 people what costs less than filing your taxes with IRS Free File.
Car seat. Oh, a pair of shoes.
The correct answer is nothing. When you use Free File, you get brand name software, tax prep, e-filing, and help with the new healthcare provisions, all for free.
So, did we win anything?
Everybody wins. freefile.irs.gov. It's fast, it's safe, it's free.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires,
Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. They met on December 3rd at Wisconsin, and Duke won that one by 10. Just a tad more will be at stake tonight in Indianapolis when the Badgers and Coach Mike Krzyzewski's Blue Devils meet again, this time in the NCAA Finals.
We both have earned it to get here. You know, their road and our road has been a difficult one, and we've responded, but it doesn't surprise me that Wisconsin's in it. Coming into the year, I thought they would be the best team in the country.
A win would give Krzyzewski his 5th national championship, and that would break a tie with Adolph Rupp for the second most titles behind John Wooden's 10. Madison Cable's putback with 20 seconds left gave Notre Dame a 66-65 win over South Carolina last night. In the NCAA women's semifinals, the Irish meet UConn in the championship game tomorrow night. Adam Wainwright pitched 6 shutout innings last night in a 3-0 Cardinals win over the Cubs in the opening game of the baseball season. Alex Rodriguez, who missed the entire 2014 season because of a drug suspension, will be in the lineup as the DH. He'll bat 7th this afternoon for the Yankees when they open their season against Toronto in the Bronx, 1 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN.
For over 60 years, Ferguson has been the name that pro contractors count on for plumbing, HVAC, waterworks, and more. They have the right products and the right people right around the corner. Put them to work for you at Ferguson.com.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, and honestly, that music has nothing to do with the Indian season. No ominous tones there. I just talking about the show, man. We're on a roll. It's non-stop here. It's on the highway to hell, as my man AC/DC there would say. Well, it's more than one guy there that makes up that group. But anyways, nothing there. I'm feeling nothing but good vibes about this Indian season, man. I'm during the break, I'm dealing with all kinds of nonsense here, man. But I kept it rolling. We're back at it. You're back with us. The Sports Fix heading into hour 2. And as you heard during the break, there's a little national championship game tonight. The Indians are kicking off their season. Oh, man, I cannot wait. The aforementioned Corey Kluber taking the mound for the Tribe. We've got a lot of things to talk about. Let's talk some Cavs, Bulls, some NCAA title. Hey, UK 38-1. Dan said they weren't going to make it through. We've talked about this throughout it, and sure enough, Wisconsin knocks them off and sets up tonight's matchup. All of that coming. Let's do it. Dan Wismar is about to join us. You can keep the conversation going. Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. Email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com. You know what? Something I didn't bring up earlier in the show that I meant to. We just kind of got away from things earlier on while we're talking about what could happen if the Indians don't identify, lock up, all of that stuff. Look at the Atlanta Braves, because that's the back end of a team that is now doing what we've seen too many times, the rebuild, to tear it down from the ground up. And I'll tell you, I'm gonna ask Dan what he thinks about that one too. But I get the Padres going all in. I liked a lot of their other moves, but man, that one there, I don't know, man. I mean, they paid a hefty fee to get a closer there because Upton came with some baggage. Well, I don't know. And the prospect haul too. I don't know that was the best deal there. It was for the Braves. But anyways, let's talk here in a minute about all of that. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan on the hotline here after this Easter weekend. Dan, how you doing, my man?
J-Rocc, I am doing great. It's a great day. It's a great week. A lot of excitement going on tonight. I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess, I'm a Tribe fan first and foremost, so I'm going to have to just, I guess the Tribe game might be just about over before we start playing basketball, but sure there'll be a little bit of overlap there, especially if the game drags on a little bit. But hey, you get by, you put your exercise in your remote thumb for. So that's what we'll have to do.
Yeah, we suffer a little bit here, man. We'll deal with it. I'd much rather deal with that than the days when we're trying to figure out what to watch, man. There's a ton of great things going on. Hey, this week, I don't know where you want to start, but since you threw that out about the basketball, I mean, let's back up 2 days. Kentucky, why don't we start there? Obviously, we're not talking about them tonight, and there is, again, no longer an undefeated team in basketball. Wisconsin knocked off Kentucky to set up tonight's game with Duke.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what I was rooting for. That's what a lot of people are rooting for. I mean, all of us underdog rooters. Plus, we had Big Ten pride at stake, and I heard somebody say over the weekend that it's been since 1941 when a Big Ten team won the national championship in football and in basketball. So, you got to pull for that. Got to pull for that to happen tonight. We talked a week ago, Jerry, you and me, about what it was going to take to beat Kentucky, and initially I thought maybe Notre Dame had what it took, but if you looked at it, and we said it last Monday, that it's going to take a team that can be disciplined and hold the score down, can shoot the three effectively because you're going to have to score from outside against Kentucky because you can't score inside against them. They're going to have to be able to, shorten the game by working for good shots and be disciplined and not turn the ball over, not make mistakes, be sound defensively. And we acknowledged at the time that, Wisconsin was all those things, but still you got to go out and do it. And so it was great to see them do it. I thought Sam Decker, that three that gave him the 3-point lead with a minute and a half, I mean, that was the dagger. From that's when Kentucky started to maybe feel the real pressure. They're down 3 with 1:40 to go, and they've executed so well at the end of games. A Notre Dame game, what they made their last 9 straight field goals. Most of them were at the rim, but still they executed when it counted. And all of a sudden, they didn't, and they came down. They had a couple of missed shots and a maybe a mistaken bad shot selection 3-pointer there, and it just snowballed on them, and obviously Wisconsin pulled away a little bit. But boy, it was a great game, and I'm glad to see the Big Ten come out on top. But it went according to script. I was a little bit upset that the Badgers didn't seem to be using Sam Decker. He's so tough to stop when he goes to the rim. But boy, he backed up and nailed that 3 with 1:45 or whatever it was to go, and that really was the dagger that put it away.
For sure. And I mean, I don't know what the rating overnights were. I don't know if they've come out yet or not. I don't know if you saw anything because I haven't. But the storyline, I mean, that was a hell of a drama there, just with coming in and a rematch and a game as good as the one the previous year in the same situation. You get the opposite result. You get the big timers and the first round draft picks and the flashy and then the underdogs and as you said, man, there was so much in that was a hell of a thing for college basketball there, and Wisconsin gets the job done.
Yeah, and I was kidding around with the people that I was watching the game with about, give me the shot of the sad Kentucky fan in the stands. I want to see some of that. And everybody knows, Kentucky basketball is much like, Ohio State football, just in terms of the huge following and the fanaticism and just the living and dying and the huge Buckeye, nation, Kentucky, big blue nation that follows them everywhere and fills the hotels and they travel so well and they're just fanatical about their basketball. And because I've got nothing invested in that. To me, I enjoy seeing that turned on its head. I enjoy seeing the sad co-ed in the stands with the tears streaming down her cheek, just because, I'm glad to see the Big Ten win. I'm glad to see this juggernaut, this supposedly unbeatable team. Love to see them lose because it makes for better drama than if they win.
I'll tell you what.
So anyway, I was eating it up, I got to say. And rooting for them to go down, not just because it was a Big Ten team, just because, like we said, you bet against them doing it just because it's so darn hard to do, and that's why it hasn't been done for 40 years, and that streak is going to continue now, obviously, and maybe some retired Indiana Hoosiers are clinking their champagne glasses this weekend.
I'll tell you what, man. I'm with you, dude. On everything that you just said, man. Watching that game, and you know what? Afterwards, I know this became a big story, and I'm not going to really go into the whole thing with the post game press conference, but the eyes. If you watched. Those Kentucky players truly did not believe that they were going, which you have to. You have to go that long to have that. You have to believe that you're not going down. That's how you win some of those games and all of that. But they were shell shocked after that game, and then of course the guy forgets that the microphone's on, and he allowed the world to hear his true feelings after. I don't know if you saw the footage of what happened in the press conference afterwards, but definitely some controversy coming out of that, as not all of the players realized that their microphones were on when one of the guys was asked a question about Kaminsky, and he made quite the derogatory comment under his breath that was then heard by everybody. And so it's now been replayed ad nauseum. I went back and listened to it as well. It's clear as day what the guy said. But, and you could tell it was a under the breath, like a heat of the moment, just a salty grapes kind of a thing. But did not realize that his microphone was on and the entire world heard his bad moment. But in general, that press conference summed up everything with them. They were like zombies, those dead eyes. You could just see a team of guys that had no clue what just happened. They were shell-shocked.
Yeah, that's true. They were, and understandably so. They're kids, even if they're rock star kids in terms of the way they've been treated their whole basketball lives, and McDonald's All-Americans and this and that. Dan Wetzel, I thought, made a good point about that press conference. It's not as if, this kid could be excused for what he said for being, quote, heat of the moment. Somebody sticks a microphone in your face as soon as the final buzzer goes off. They have the mandatory cooling off period. 15 minutes later, they walk through and climb stairs and go up to the briefing room, and they sit down at their table. So in other words, the initial emotion of having lost is gone. The guy didn't have that excuse for what he said. But bottom line, I think Kaminsky handled it with a ton of class.
For sure.
After all, when you call a white man the N-word, what does that really mean? What does that really mean anyway? How demeaning can that be? I guess so. I think maybe more was made of it. Of course, you take note of the double standard. It would have been a huge outcry had it been in a reverse.
Could you imagine the reverse?
You can't even imagine. It would have been front page headlines. But
it's all we'd be talking about right now.
That's right. But like I said, in the final analysis, how derogatory is it when a black man calls a white man the N-word? Let's face it, it's yesterday's news already. So, and Kaminsky, like I said, handled it in a classy way, and so it's over for him. So it should be over for us, I guess.
Oh yeah, to me, what much more than that, because you've got to deal with that on your own regards as far as that. But to me, it just showed how I want to say that's like you said, not saying heat of the moment, because I've done that on the radio. Now, obviously, I've not done that, but I have been listening intently to somebody talking, especially when we get to a real back and forth conversation, and I have definitely thought things while I was listening and listened back to the show and realized that I actually whispered it as I was thinking it. I have definitely done that before, but not a lot, not very often.
Yeah, thinking out loud. Yeah,
absolutely.
And pro tip for the player. When you put your hand over your mouth, it doesn't turn your microphone off.
Nope.
So let's just remember that for future reference. It wasn't the guy who said it, not the person to whom the question was asked.
Oh no, it was one of the other guys down the road.
Yeah,
I can't
that's what I thought. So
just
for future reference, putting your hand up to your face doesn't make what you say unintelligible to the microphone. So just to file that away as a lesson learned.
Yeah, that was just. Anyways, I just thought it summed it up because clearly, like, you just were on another place at that point. But hey, hats off goes to Wisconsin. Now, I have no prediction, none whatsoever. Who's going to win tonight's game? What do you think tonight? I mean,
well,
where do you go?
all you can say, Jerry, is it's going to be tough for Wisconsin to crank themselves back up.
Right.
I
do you
think
get back
that's got
up
to be
after that?
Yeah. And that's a rather banal piece of analysis because it was you're able to say that right after the fact. I mean, geez, how are these guys going to jack it all back up emotionally for Monday night? Now, I'm sure the environment and everything else will, all the pomp and pageantry will help do that and get them cranked up emotionally and they're a veteran team, and that's really what. Sort of the lesson of this whole thing seems to be that maybe Kentucky had the better players, or maybe Wisconsin had the better team, and maybe there's something about staying in college for 2 or 3 or 4 seasons that lends itself to that. And maybe crunch time comes, and how could Kentucky have a revenge motive when basically all the players are there for 1 year and they leave, and it's a whole different group of guys the next time around. And by the way, Kentucky has the number 1 recruiting class in the country coming in next year to play for Calipari, and may very well be back there again at 37-1 or 38-0 or something. Who knows? But the team aspect of it certainly, I think, helped Wisconsin. And in retrospect, you can look at it and say they held together down the stretch. When crunch time came, they delivered, and I don't think you can underestimate the fact that they had been playing together for 2 or 3 years as a group to contribute to that.
I'll tell you what, too. I don't know who the style is going to play to more, but I expect a pound them out, grind them out game. I mean, Duke, I just saw this stat this morning. One of the best defensive teams in NCAA tournament history, the run that they're having this year, they're giving up 55 points a game throughout this tournament. That's an incredibly low number. I mean, that is going to be it's going to be a defensive battle here tonight.
Yeah, I agree. And Krzyzewski always, I think he doesn't get enough credit for having a typically, strong defensive team, but he does. And I got to admit, I went into this tournament not having seen a whole lot of Duke play this year, maybe just a time or two. And I'm tremendously impressed with them, athleticism-wise and effort-wise and just basketball IQ-wise, I guess I'd say. Very impressed with him. I have like you, I'm going to stop short of making a prediction. I'm just going to sit down and watch this game tonight and try to enjoy it. And I'll be rooting for the Big Ten, but, it's you have to appreciate what you see in Duke after you've seen them, take apart a good Michigan State team. I mean, just dominate them and, put that one away early. That was very impressive, and, got to give them their props.
You know what? While we're giving props, let me just pause this conversation for a minute and say that as Lord awful as my bracket was this year, I picked Duke to win the entire tournament. Duke has they're my salvation. See, I spent the last 2 weeks in 50th place out of 50 people in the Sports Fix Bracket Challenge. After the first day of being near the top, I quickly sunk to the bottom and have hung out there ever since, all throughout the middle weekends of this thing here. And guess what? Now, I can finish no lower, thanks to Kentucky getting knocked off, I can finish no lower than 8th. Or no lower than 10th, and I could finish as high as 7th or 8th in this thing by the time it's all said and done if Duke wins tonight. But tell you what, speaking of, by the way, in our bracket, we had 50 different people enter. The huge majority, clearly 3/4 of the brackets were Kentucky to win. Only 5 out of the 50 picked Duke. Only 4 out of the 50 picked Wisconsin, so they're the only team still alive. Quickly, for those of you guys listening that are in the tournament challenge that have watched, it has completely changed thanks to what happened this weekend, because with Kentucky getting knocked off, and obviously 75% of the brackets picked them, check this out, Dan. We had our leader Adam Spear, longtime listener of the show, he was in the top percentage of the nation through all those millions of people, all the way up until he had Kentucky winning the whole thing. But he was in the 99.5 percentile of people filling out their brackets. I mean, he had done incredibly well and was on pace to win ours as well. He is now eliminated. He cannot win. There are 3 people that can potentially win. If Duke wins, there will be a tie. And if Wisconsin wins, there will be a single winner. But there are now 3 people that can win our contest tonight. Malik Omar, if Wisconsin wins, he is the cut and dry, point blank winner of the tournament challenge. And if Duke wins, there are 2 people here. The Bourbon Ghost, no idea who that is, and one guy who just named himself the Cleveland Prize Pack, which just happens to be what you win if you win the challenge. Those 2 guys would be tied if Duke wins the thing. But so we'll see.
Yeah, well, my bracket, and I was just in a little small time pool that my wife's involved in, but I picked the games for. Had a similar trajectory. I was scraping bottom after day 1, and gradually worked my way back up, and actually picked all 4 final teams correctly. However, I picked both the semifinals wrong. I picked Kentucky and Michigan State to win those games. So that's where I fell off the edge. But for a while there, I was right back in it. In any event,
I love it. Last year I did the same thing.
So that's weird how your guy was, in the top half of a percent, and then is already eliminated. Did he not have? He probably had Kentucky winning, and
he had Kentucky winning both. So those are the 2 that killed him, because that was an additional, I think, 1,000 points or whatnot when you win the semifinal and then the championship game. So he lost there with that one. He had been perfect. He had nailed 14. Was it 14 or 15? 14 of the 16 Sweet 16 teams. He had gotten everything perfect all the way down through there. I mean, he had a hell of a bracket, and then it all fell apart for him with Kentucky here at the end. But second year in a row for me that I was risking finishing dead last in my own tournament contest, whatever, and the final weekend moved me up into the top 10 now. 2 years in a row where it looks like, J-Rocc knows what he's talking about. No, I do not, but at least I can pretend.
That's okay. By next year, everyone will have forgotten all about that, J-Rocc, and you can just
New rule. I said it at the beginning of today's show. I think I'm going to just eliminate during the month of March there's no replays. If you don't listen to the show live, it doesn't exist. It just goes away, because I literally have people pull up the old shows and go, "Hey, man, I was just listening to what you said the other day." Charles told me that this morning. He goes, "Boy, you really do stink at this, man." I'm like, yeah. You know what? No more of this pulling up my own words and using them against me stuff, man. I'm gonna put a stop to this, man, right now.
That's probably a good policy.
No, I'm just playing, man. It's all good, man. Like I said, I'll talk about a lot of stuff with you, man, and I'll be intelligent in most of it. But basketball, or college basketball, I should say, you flip coins and you're doing better than me, man. Hey, real quick before we get to baseball, because I'm dying to get there, but I was talking a little bit about the Cavs. What were your thoughts yesterday? The Cavs and the Bulls, of course, big national game, ridiculous stuff going on for 3 quarters of that game. Then Cavaliers find themselves in a dogfight down the stretch. What were you thinking watching some of that stuff yesterday?
Well, I wish down the stretch that, obviously that LeBron and Kyrie would, take a little bit more care to take care of the basketball, because it's really turnovers by those 2 guys trying to do too much, maybe be a little bit too blasé about things, that got them in some trouble. On the other hand, the Cavs were in control of that basketball game. I think the Bulls got within 5 a couple of times.
That was it. They got within 5. Yeah.
Let's face it. All this whining afterwards. Not on. We'll get to Noah in a moment. But even the coach. If those guys hadn't scored all those points, the game would have been closer. If those guys hadn't made those shots, it would have been a tighter ball game. Well, no kidding. Don't flatter yourself. The Cavs were leading by 19. They let their foot off the gas a little bit, and we're coming down the stretch of the regular season. Good grief. The Bulls weren't in that game.
I know.
And the other thing is Noah the biggest phony tough guy you've ever seen? Here's a guy who Wait till LeBron turns his back and he calls him a pussy. He's the kind of guy who sits on the bench and barks from the bench insults at people when they know they can't do anything about it. And then afterwards talks about, we can't wait to play these guys in the playoffs. And I admit, obviously, if they get Heinrich and Derrick Rose back and those guys are anything like, mid-season form, then it would be a very tough series, granted. I don't think they're going to beat the Cavs in a 7-game series, but would it be a tough, entertaining, hotly contested series? Sure it would. But, and I suppose that's what these guys need to do to make themselves feel better about getting basically eliminated from the possibility of catching the Cavs for the 2 seed. I mean, if they'd been 2 games down with 5 to play, it was at least be conceivable. Now they're 4 games down with 5 to play, and it's not conceivable that they could overtake us. So, they got to soothe their damaged, psyches somehow. But Noah, he's just an easy guy to hate from a Cavs standpoint. Oh, yeah. He hates the Cavs. He hates LeBron. But he is such a phony tough guy. He's a guy who will, basically take a swing at you and run. And a guy to wait till you turn your back to call you a name. And a guy who barks from the bench when nobody can do anything about it and thinks he's tough. The guy just makes me mad.
Oh, I'll tell you. You know what, by the way, that's one of my biggest things in the NBA in general. My son and I laugh about that a lot watching the games because, we'll pick and choose who we think are real tough guys and who aren't, And it's like, come on, man. After the game, you're putting your glasses on and going back to read a book. Come on, man. Let's not act like we're hitting the streets here. But
yeah, take your ponytail down and relax after the game.
But I will say this. I gotta say that talking about things that I point out, a lot of times I'm watching with my son and I'm teaching him little things here and there, and we're talking about things, and I said, this game is a living example that you don't get the calls until the referees feel that you've earned the calls. And listen, I feel better saying this because the Cavs won decisively, and so it's not sour grapes or anything like that. But I thought that within 5 minutes of each other there, where LeBron gets the flagrant call, and then Noah practically slaps him in the face as he's coming through, palms his face, and it was clearly a flagrant foul. I mean, it wasn't egregious. He didn't punch LeBron in the face, but it was a very physical foul, and it happens right in front of the official, and they just call the standard foul. And I'm like, see, that's the proof that it doesn't matter. It's not about who's better, who's worse, who's this, that, the other thing. It's until they feel you've earned it, you're not going to get it. And say what you will, Chicago to the NBA officials have proven more than this young Cavaliers team. So I'm just warning you guys to be prepared for some of that in these playoffs, because I don't think the Cavs are going to get – I know some people outside are going, well, LeBron gets all the calls, but I'm talking about the entire team, not just LeBron. But LeBron gets beat up a lot because his size, and that I will give him. He may overact him, but he gets beat up a lot because of his size. But I don't expect the Cavs to get many calls in this playoff run because to the officials, they haven't earned it. Now, let them win a championship this year. You'll see a huge difference next year in how the officials officiate Cavs games, but I think yesterday pointed that out, that they're going to let teams like the Bulls that they believe have earned their dues, paid their dues, get more physical than they are the Cavs.
Well, that's true, and I've noticed it quite a bit, really all season, that, the people that don't see the Cavs play all the time, and the perception is that the superstar gets all the calls, that you can't breathe hard on LeBron or you get called for a foul. That's nonsense. LeBron gets beat up so hard, like you said. I was just going to bring that up when you said it. And so does Kyrie, because Kyrie now is completely fearless going to the rim, and he finishes at the rim better than any guard, any short person that I've ever seen play in the NBA. But he gets banged around, and he took some shots yesterday where he just, picking himself off the floor after wicked body shots, after trying to, put a layup in or a little floater, a little runner, a little, teardrop jumper or whatever, and he gets banged to the floor and nothing. LeBron is accustomed to getting hacked and hammered as he goes to the rim and doesn't get calls because he's LeBron and he's strong. And, it's the same kind of thing that the big men in the league, the Kareem Jabbars and the Russells and those guys always used to complain about. Because I'm 7 feet tall, that doesn't mean you can hack my arms and undercut me and body into me, every time I go to the hole. But, the big men don't get those calls as much as the little guys do. For some reason, Kyrie and LeBron aren't getting the calls, like you say, and I think any objective observer that's watching them is going to agree with that. Now, down the stretch, a couple of times LeBron got a call because he was, rock hard going to the basket. But there's an awful lot of times where the hack on the arm or the reach around or the reach in, the wrist slap, whatever, doesn't get called because, hey, you've got a body like Adonis and you ought to be able to brush that stuff off, I guess is the way they think about it. And the closer you get to the playoffs, the more they're going to let them play, as they say, and let the little stuff go. But and maybe you're right in your premise that until you win a ring, you're not a superstar. I think LeBron's won a few rings, a couple rings already, and ought to be getting superstar treatment if such a thing is really exists in the league.
Well, and I'm with you there too. I agree with you. That's why I said the team as a whole in general, because nobody else on the Cavs have done anything except him. But I think he's dealt with that. Yeah, the thing is that I've always been when LeBron wasn't here, I can't go back on what I said. He is the king of laying on the mat and making sure to milk the moment. I don't care what jersey he's got on. He loves to lay there and let you think about that for just a minute. But he has, from the day he came into the league, whether it's a size thing or whatever, he is one of the few, and I have to say this, and I said it when he was in Miami, that doesn't get the truckload of the superstar calls. Like people used to always get on Michael Jordan because you couldn't breathe within the vicinity of Michael Jordan without a foul being called.
Exactly.
And really, in all fairness, LeBron does not get that. But the thing is it's perception is everything, because I talk to people in some of the different national type Facebook groups and things. We'll get into conversation, and they look at it the opposite. They think LeBron gets all the credit. I'm like, seeing the games, all of them. You guys only see the ones that are on national TV or when he comes to your town. I can say that he may get some that you don't agree with, but I don't know that I've seen a superstar, at least in the modern era, not get the calls like LeBron does. It's actually, that's the truth. You can't take that away. I've always chalked it up to the size, and they just think because if you can hit a man and he doesn't go down, then it must not have been that hard of a foul, and I think that's always been one of the problems is his ability to take a shot.
Yeah, now I don't know if you remember in the game yesterday, I was incredulous to this one. It's the one where Kyrie's going to the hoop and the Bulls player literally leapfrogs him from behind and knocks his head down forward, so his chin's on his chest, goes completely over the top of him and leapfrogs his head and bangs his head down into his chest and there's no call made. Kyrie's
This is a good hustle play. It's a good hustle
he missed
play.
the shot, and they're going the other way with the rebound, and I just couldn't believe it.
Come on.
It was incredible. But anyway, enough whining on that. I wanted to
it's
get
because
my
the Bulls
anti Noah rant in there because that guy just ticks me off no end.
Come on, Thibodeau's such a good coach. He's got the Bulls training hurdles. What are you talking about, man? That was
they're also talking about replacing him. Replacing their coach up there. I can't even believe that because he's done a nice job with him.
Is that the talk up there in Chicago that he may be on the rocks?
Yeah, that's what I heard. In fact, I can't even think of who it was. Not Billy Donovan. Somebody like that talked about as being a guy that might replace him if they decide to pull the plug on him. Anyway, hard to it's like criticizing the Cavs coach if because he didn't play too well in the 2 weeks without LeBron. I mean, he's been without his best player here for the majority of the season, and they're a playoff team. And
seasons,
yeah,
not just one.
Anyway, that's just a little bit of speculation I was reading over the weekend.
Allow me to say this on behalf of the city of Cleveland and the Cavaliers franchise. I think I'll speak for Dan Gilbert. If Mr. Thibodeau does end up released from his job and feels like taking a step back and going back to being a defensive coordinator, pretty sure they'll find a spot for him on the Cavaliers, man. I'm just saying, that's a hell of a coach. And you guys, he's been without Derrick Rose most of how long now, and all of the issues that he's dealt with, man. Come on, that is not his fault that window is closing on Chicago the way it did, because he sure put him there, in my opinion, as a coach. Real quick, talking about the two things we just mentioned, coaches and March Madness, I think it's just the time of year. Brad Stevens, man, coaching his butt off in Boston. And I was joking with my son yesterday. I said, man, he's used to this. It's Butler. He's used to an underachieving group of a mid-major college in March and April, and he's used to, because look what he's doing with that group there, man. Ever since they made a couple of trades there in Boston, man, he's got them making that late season run.
Yeah, and you can credit him, but you also have to sort of scratch your head at the literal collapse of the Heat and the Pacers.
Oh yeah,
both
man.
Just here in the last few days, a week and a half, whatever, just taking the pipe. A week ago they were 7-8, and now they're both out of it. The Cavs are now looking at Brooklyn in the first round, or depending on what the Celtics do here in the last few games. Obviously, those guys are still within striking range, but they have really folded the tent here when it looked like the Heat and the Pacers might be the teams to beat at 7-8. All of a sudden, they're looking up at the Celtics and the Nets.
Absolutely. I mean, Brooklyn has really stormed up. They've won 8. They beat the Cavs last week. In that run, they've won 8 of their last 10 to move up from 12th to the 7th spot there. But there's really, with 5 games to play, there's literally 1 game separating Indiana and Miami and 1.5 games with Charlotte. So I'm not convinced that Brooklyn's been so hot that they may be able to stave it off, but even they're only a half a game up as well, so there's still a lot of play there. I think Miami, especially with Wade getting hurt against the Cavs the way he did, I think that may have done it for them. Do you think Paul George coming back gets Indiana back into it?
I can't imagine that he's going to be playing at a level necessary to make a huge difference for them. Maybe he can. I saw he had 13 points in his debut here yesterday. But I don't know. Like you say, the Nets are hot and the Celtics are hot, so maybe they're just getting better at the right time. I think certainly either the Celtics or the Nets is a much more attractive matchup for the Cavs than the Pacers or the Heat. I don't think there'd be much argument from anybody about that the collapse of the Heat and the Pacers has to make the Cavs feel better about their situation than the first round.
Yeah, the Pacers were such a bad matchup, and now they may be just completely on the outside looking in. Brooklyn, to me, is probably the matchup that's the most, I don't want to say easy, but it's the easiest, in my opinion, of the potential first-round matchups there for the Cavs, because I think age catches up to them there. I think that I know they won the last meeting, but I just think that was a different set of circumstances. I just think Brooklyn is the one that the Cavaliers would. I think Boston is scrappy, man. I mean, they'll probably run them over too. I had somebody yesterday make the prediction on one of our pages that Boston knocks off Atlanta in the biggest first-round upset in NBA history. I said, yeah, you sound like you filled out my NCAA bracket there, buddy. I don't know about that one, but
keep your day job. Yeah, right. Don't think that's going to happen.
Who did the Hawks lose? So they just lost somebody, though. They may have a little bit of an injury concern. Somebody just went down for them. Who was it?
I did not see that, Jerry.
Yeah, somebody got hurt yesterday. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see here. And interesting to see how the Cavs approach the last 5 games, because you got to decide who to rest, who not to rest. And you don't want to rest everybody. You don't want to totally lose your groove, but you want to hit the ground nice.
Yeah, right. You want to give these guys a break, but you don't want to go full Popovich, as they say. You don't want
Right.
You don't want to go that route. Rest them one at a time, and give each of them a day off, and then maybe a couple of quarters off here the rest of the way, because you really need to win one more game to out of 5 to clinch the second seed. So anything as soon as you get that one under your belt, then start sitting these guys down and get Love back healthy and give LeBron all the rest he wants.
And you know what? While they're doing all that here, they'll be playing out these, they got 10 games left, 9 games after today left in the regular season. And that's good, because now we've got time to switch the focus to baseball. Baseball is starting. Dan, how great was it? Yesterday it began for Major League Baseball, but how great did it feel to wake up and go, man, all right. And on top of that, where are you at? I know you were listening. I was talking about it a little earlier with the with the Indians and the signing of Kluber and Carrasco, and you were right on time with that with the comparison of the Scherzer and the Kluber deal. But how do you feel this morning, seeing what the Indians did this weekend and looking at what they've done the last few years? How are you feeling today heading into opening day?
I feel great. I mean, I love the signings, and everybody that, all the naysayers can sit back all they want and say that this could blow up in their faces. Well, of course it could. These guys, because arms could fall off in August of this year, and so what? It doesn't mean that signing them was a bad idea. If you waited, you could say, well, you could wait. You can always wait, and as you wait, and as you pay your number 2 starter $600,000 or whatever. I don't know what Carrasco was scheduled to make this year. It's probably under $1 million. You're having him saying, "Hey, the average number 2 starter in Major League Baseball is making $12 million or whatever it is," and these guys are grabbing me. They're exploiting me. They're taking advantage of me. They could sign me to a long-term deal. In other words, over the period of years, everybody knows there's dues paying to do in Major League Baseball, and you don't make the big money until you get into that arbitration period and start getting market value for your services. At the same time, you're also building up resentment on the part of the player and the agent, so that when they finally do get their chance to bolt your city, they're going to do it. And I just sent you the Scherzer deal because I couldn't believe it as I went back and looked at it. $10 million the first year, this year, then 15 and 15 and 15 the next 3 years each. Yeah. Then 2019, 2020, and 2021, $35 million a year for 3 years.
Right,
now, whether or not that's money that he's contracted, and this isn't like the NFL where if you don't want to pay, you just cut the guy. They're on the hook for that money. $35 million a year for 3 years, starting in 2019.
That's the
Incredible.
whole contract.
And
that's
so
the whole
Kluber
deal. One deal, one year. That's the whole Kluber deal.
and so if you and let's we'll stipulate that maybe Corey Kluber isn't Max Scherzer. I don't know. There might be a year or two difference in age or whatever. I'm sure there is. But bottom line is, one guy wins the Cy Young in 2013. One guy wins the Cy Young in 2014. And you just went on the hook for $8 million a year. And you made the point earlier. That's Brett Meyer's money. That's Sean Markham money, whatever. I don't know. Obviously, didn't invest that much in Markham, but that's what you're talking about. To sign a free agent off the scrap heap or off of an arm surgery, or a guy who did it 2 years ago and hasn't done it since, and he's a big question mark. It's Scott Kazmir money, if you want to put it that way, for a guy who won the Cy Young. And if you can do that, if you can do that, you do it. And if your guy, the other thing is, and I've heard Shapiro talk about this, it's not just Corey Kluber's 1 year of 18 wins and you win the Cy Young and great numbers and strikeouts and innings pitched and et cetera, et cetera. It's the person that Corey Kluber is. And it sounds cliche, but the Indians have tried to, make their commitments to guys that they think are, solid citizens, hard workers. They say nobody's going to outwork Corey Kluber. And the guys like Gomes and Brantley and Kipnis, those are the type of people, not players, but people that they want to make long-term commitments to, that they feel have the work habits and the personalities and the team approach and that have, done the buy-in, as they call it, to the program here in Cleveland. And those are the guys that they feel good about signing. We're not talking about a bunch of Justin Uptons or whatever, and I just picked that name out of a hat of guys that maybe, like a team like the Braves is trying to just spin off and get rid of. I shouldn't say Justin, isn't it DJ, maybe the guy that they just spun off to the Padres in that big deal yesterday.
Melvin.
So it's not, they're not that types of guys that are clubhouse cancers or whatever. So they're looking at the personality and the people involved, and not just the skill sets and the baseball numbers, in trying to build that core. And they've got that core now. And with the exception of their middle infielders, well, Kipnis is a part of that core, but the shortstop situation, I'm not sure what Chisenhall's contract status is. I think obviously the jury's still out on him. But they're building a long-term core of players, and they think they've got a pretty good group, and we're sure as heck going to find out. But signing your number 1 and number 2 starters to long-term deals based on the promise that those guys shown, I don't know how any fan, Indians fan, can sit there and be critical of that and say that they should have waited longer. Because Kluber goes out and has another good year, or Carrasco goes out and has another great year, then maybe their whole attitude changes to, I don't want to sign the long-term deal. I'm going to play my cards close to the vest, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to, ride it out here for a couple more years, and I'm going to make Scherzer money.
And then you're trading them. And then you have to trade them. And there we go all over again, having to trade them because we don't know if they're going to stay, and we don't think we can pay them.
Right. So obviously it's a crapshoot. Obviously it's a roll of the dice. It's a big risk. All the national writers have said the same thing. The Indians, with this, putting all their cards on this extremely young group of starting pitchers, it could unravel in a hurry, and it could go south. And certainly, as you and I both know, there will be guys sitting there just itching to say, I told you so, if that happens. But that won't change my mind at all, in hindsight, that this was the right move to make, and to applaud them for doing it.
Now, I know some fans are going to jump and yell with what I'm going to say, but I'm just making an example. And, Dan, I want you to give me your honest answer to this question. Let's say that last spring, the Indians signed a 5-year, $38 million contract with Justin Masterson, and everything happened the way it did. He pitched as he did last season. He's on the hook for the next 4 years. You're paying him about $7 million a year. I don't think anybody's complaining about that contract today. And now change the name Justin Masterson to Corey Kluber. But I'm just saying, based on the market value of what guys get in today's game, that's not a terrible Justin Masterson contract with him being in the position that he's in. And that's all I'm saying is, and we're talking about, to me, a completely different potential level of pitcher there. But, I mean, that's just, like you said, that's a, hey, you show up and start 20, 25 games. That's what you're going to get here, $7, $8 million.
Right. And again, all you have to do is revisit the numbers of that proposed Masterson deal that they actually made to him. 3 years.
What was it?
3 years, 45. 3 years, 45.
3 years, $45 million. And we're talking about 5 years for $38 million here, and people are going nuts, man.
Yeah, 3 at 45, and he was holding out for 3 at 51. Okay, he wanted the full $17 million a year. The Indians were only offering him 15. Can you imagine the outcry? It would have made the Swisher outcry look like a whisper if they had done that, and then he had gone out and gone in the tank like he did. So yeah, it's people forget. People's memories are short. They ought to be having a ticker tape parade for signing Corey Kluber for 5 years for $8 million a year average.
Think about it. It should be a parade because last year Justin Masterson was handed a check from the Indians for more money for less years. And thank you. I mean, sometimes fortunate things shine down upon you and you don't even realize it. And that was one of them for the Cleveland Indians at that point in time. But that to me should erase any argument. We shouldn't even be able to continue arguing about Corey Kluber at that point when if Masterson's people had taken the Indians offer, people would have been lined up and celebrating and going, all right, what a good deal the Indians got. And they'd be paying Justin Masterson $10 million more for 2 less seasons than what they just committed to Corey Kluber. And again, these are also contracts that aren't hard to trade. These are things that are not in any way matter of fact, they're barely cumbersome to a small budget team like Cleveland, to any competent, big, what I mean is big, not, we don't care, like a $7 million pitcher we don't blink an eye at. They'll take a Corey Kluber all day long 3 years from now at that price tag, or a Carrasco. So it's not like this is a franchise crippling contract. I think Bourne and Swisher were much more, and that shows why you do what they did now rather than go pay those guys in free agency.
Yeah, exactly right. It's not, like you say, it's not a Ryan Howard deal where the guy's like a millstone around your neck for the next few years because he's untradeable because of the money. That would still be a bargain, and it'll be a huge bargain 3-4 years from now when he's still got a couple years left on the deal. If something does go south or whatever, or somebody wants to offer you a blockbuster trade for him or whatever, he's still a bargain, years down the road.
And for anybody that says he might get hurt, okay, I get you. But guess what? I mean, everybody wants Francisco Lindor up tomorrow, which means that they want him signed this offseason long term. Guess what? He could show up and blow a knee out, and his career could be over too. You know what I mean? Derek Jeter could have showed up on day one, twisted an ankle, and then found out he had something wrong and never played another game the rest of his life. You know? I mean, you never know. So to fault the Indians for this, that's what gets me, is I'm like, you're nuts. And really, to be honest, I haven't seen a ton of it. I have seen some, but even some of the staunchest anti-Dolan people are saying, you know what, listen, I have to give them credit because these guys don't pay anybody, and they have at least allowed their front office to say, these are the guys we should pay, and they said, okay, and they wrote some checks, and it's not always easy to get the Indians to do that, and they have, and it's exactly like what they did in the 90s. I was talking about it, they missed on a few, they got most of them right, but in this environment, that's the only chance a team like the Indians has to have more than a one shot. Now, you can always have a one-shot season here and there where you have one good season or you sign a guy or for a one-year deal, whatever. You can have a run and then you go back to being in the middle of the pack. But to have a sustained window, this is the only way other than spending $245 on one player instead of on 8 over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe the best example of that is, Scott Kazmir comes in on a deal. You make a good call, you get lucky, and your team wins 92 games, and then he's gone. Because some other team is willing to give him a huge double-digit millions per year kind of a deal. That's what he got. More power to him. But like you say, that's a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term fix. So you're right. This is the way you have to do it. This is the way we have to do it in Cleveland, Ohio. And there will always be the naysayers. You know that. Goodness knows. You know it as well as anybody. That there will be guys that are going to, get their self-satisfaction by whining about, front office moves. And the other thing is we're so local-centric. Obviously we know our team. We pay attention to our team better than others. And we're not seeing, the huge sums of money that are being thrown away on bad signing decisions by other franchises. We don't pay attention to those things. Yeah. We don't see the Dodgers taking a bath on certain players or the Red Sox doing what they do. And all they do is just pick themselves back up and write another check. Steinbrenner did it for years, where he would, do extremely stupid signings. And obviously they're dealing with the extremely stupid Alex Rodriguez signing right now. They don't want to pay the guy $25 million. But that's what they're, committed to paying him for a couple more seasons if he's, as long as he shows up. And so it's, every team does it. Some teams do it with bigger numbers in front of the dollar signs than others. But we tend to focus on, we can say, okay, yeah, this is great, but Nick Swisher, but, we haven't got that much out of this guy or Michael Bourne or whatever. By the way, it had a fabulous spring and, worked hard to get his legs in shape. And maybe we're looking at a little bit of a breakout for Michael Bourne. Hopefully that'll be what happens. But, and on the other hand, you go back and maybe Justin Masterson, is worth $10 million this year. There's no reason to think that Justin Masterson can't work out some mechanical difficulties and go out there and perform and saw somebody today picking the Red Sox to go to the World Series. I think they're high, but I think maybe Justin Masterson can bring it back and turn out to be worth some money. And if he is, the Red Sox got a deal because I think they only paid him $6 or $7 million.
And think about this. I'm going to end it this way because it's our show and we can do what we want. Is instead of looking at the what can go wrong, let's look at what can go right. Because I'll tell you what, if this pans out and even one, let alone if both of these guys are even 3/4 of what the Indians hope that they can be for the length of this contract, do you realize what what the future for the Indians looks like? Because I don't care what you say about the ownership and how much money they're willing to spend. When you have a championship-level roster where your top couple of pitchers and your main players are locked up at decent franchise-friendly rates, well, all of a sudden, the Dolans become a lot less afraid to jump out and grab somebody in free agency for a season or two, or grab a player, or accent the roster this way, or complement the roster that way, because you can do that when you've got that much cost certainty on your team. So while we're looking at what can go wrong, look at what can go right, because if the Indians do relatively well with this over the next few years, they'll be in a position where they will have a lot of payroll flexibility during what they hope is a championship window of opportunity.
Yeah, and not only that, Jerry, but the Indians' best prospects, minor league players, are at that. Most of them are at that A to AA level of baseball, where they are 2 or 3 or 4 years away from being legitimate major league players. I'm talking about the Frasers and the Naquins and the Urshela's more ready maybe, but the Bobby Bradleys and Bradley Zimmers and Clint Frasers and people like that, the Francisco Maya and the people that are 2 and 3 years away from being major league players. This core goes to their logical, stopping point, the ends of their contracts. Then you've got a ton of guys that are going to be ready to, assume those roles, and you're not going to be out looking for position players, or, maybe the Indian system isn't quite as deep in starting pitching as it is right now in middle of the diamond players or position players, even picking up some corner outfielders. But, those guys are going to be ready in that time span when this core group is reaching the, coming up to the ends of their contracts.
Tell you what, Dan Wismar joining us here on the Sports Fix, and man, I'm feeling good. We're talking about the Indians, their commitment here to the future. They're wrapping up a core this weekend. Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco on the verge of opening day. So that means what, Dan? Now we start talking about the Browns, right? No, I'm just kidding. Opening
what you
day.
need to do, what you need to tell me, and I'm going to ask you for some information that I don't have. Obviously, we're facing a left-handed pitcher tonight. I haven't seen the starting lineup yet. Do you have that in front of you?
Let's see. I've got things together here for what we've got going. I don't have the lineup just yet. I'll work on that while we're talking here.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
We do know
That's
who's
fine.
taking the mound for the
Indians. I hadn't seen it yet. I wondered. I thought you might have it because I knew we were facing the lefty, and that might change things around a little bit. We might be seeing an Aviles or a Rayburn or somebody instead of some guys that we might have otherwise expected to see. But be interesting to see how they line it up tonight.
Absolutely. And, of course, as we said, on the other side, for the Indians, that we do know, and that's going to be the pitcher taking the mound for them, Corey Kluber, right off the bat. Get the first look at Corey Kluber here beginning the season. And I'm telling you, man, I was hoping it was because I didn't know the up until over the weekend, I wasn't sure the actual first pitch of the game, and I'm like, man, tell me we got that good afternoon. No, we got the, that's all right, build the anticipation. Let me wait all day for this thing here, and then come 7 o'clock, ready to get it going and watch some real, honest-to-goodness baseball. I mean, really, just all of the lead-up and all of the hubbalub is all good, but, man, I'm ready to see this team play some ball, man.
Exactly right. Hey, one thing I wanted to get in before I got off with you today, Masters Week coming up, and I just wanted to mention one thing. My kid, my son, works for IBM. He has for years been locked into their association with the Masters tournament. He's the webmaster of Masters.com. He has written, essentially, is the technical software architect behind the smartphone app for the Masters. And if you haven't seen it, you haven't downloaded the free Masters app, it's awesome. They have, during the tournament, 4 different live video feeds. They've got video flyovers of every hole on the golf course. Obviously, of course, leaderboards and scores and stories and photos and everything else. It's really a pretty incredible app for a free app. So just a little plug for it, because my kid is in charge of it, and I'm proud of him. If you don't have that Masters app, just go grab it for your smartphone or your tablet. You will not regret it, because it's just especially for the Thursday and Friday round, when you're not sitting at home maybe watching it on TV, you're at the office and you want to check on things, or you want to watch a little live video during the tournament, and obviously keep up on scoring and leaders and et cetera. you can't go wrong. So anyway, that's my little plug for the Masters app because my kid's involved in it.
Well, there you go. And speaking of, by the way, what do you think? Of course, all the buzz. You know, if you listen to anybody in sports talk, the only question is Tiger Woods going to play? Is he any good? Because that's the limit of their golf conversation. I'm not going to act like mine is a whole lot deeper. I know a few things here and there, but what are you thinking of looking ahead here? I know you're always excited about the Masters here and all of that.
Well, I'm excited about it, but I got to say my knowledge of golf is a mile wide and an inch deep. I don't claim to have a lot of insight into favorites or whatever. I love watching it just because the course is just incredible and beautiful, and just the specter of it and the panorama, the whole the golf course itself, the physical course, is really the appeal of it for me, and obviously it's a huge event. But as far as picking a favorite or even, I was a little surprised to see Tiger. I'm sure you probably heard about his request that if he's in, that he goes off early, and then he's not going to have, be the key part of the telecast, because he felt that was going to be more pressure than he wanted to deal with. I thought that was a little bit self-serving of him to suggest that, since he's obviously the big draw for the viewers in the first place. So then he said, "Hey man, I'm going to play, but send me off early and don't film me because, gosh, that's just too tough for me." I thought that was a little bit of a self-serving whine on his part. And if I'm the people running the Masters, I'm going to say, no, sorry, we're not going to cater to you to that extent. But then I don't know how or if they resolve that with him, or how they addressed his request to sort of be off the beaten path or out of the scrutiny of the public and the TV cameras. But I just thought that was maybe a little bit of a do this for me because I'm Tiger, sure. not because there's any logical reason to do it.
No, absolutely. That's funny. Hey, yeah, could you mind? Yeah, no, you're the only reason these people are watching, man. So, yeah, we're going to I mean, like, Swisher coming up and going, "Hey, look, could you guys mind not filming my at-bats for the first couple of games that I'm back? Because I don't really know if I'm going to be back in the groove yet or not." So, turn
you might as well say,
off.
"Hey, man, tell the pitchers not to throw me any curveballs because, I don't want to look at it."
Oh, man. Hey, you know what? While we're talking about stuff, before I let you go, man, it was so funny. I mean, I've realized that 2015 was the year in Back to the Future before, but I saw something over the weekend. There's some contest out of Chicago. Some company actually giving away a remodeled DeLorean time machine from Back to the Future to 2015. Man, this is the year that movie years ago said that the Cubs win the World Series. I don't know if you've seen any of the fun people are having with that, but wouldn't it be something, man? I was just thinking of it over the weekend because there was a marathon on those, and I go, wouldn't it be something if 2015, all the years that they could have done something, wouldn't it be something if that was the year that they won and this movie 30 years ago predicted it?
Yeah, that would be wild. And of course, St. Louis kind of rained on the Cubs parade last night a little bit. They failed to get out of the gate real quick. And by the way, it took me a while to. Now, I'd heard they were working on Wrigley Field. Okay, I heard they were doing some stuff to it. But Wrigley Field, it looks like unrecognizable. It doesn't look like Wrigley Field anymore. I don't know what your take on it was, but the whole left field area, the whole outfield area, used to have the people sitting up above there and, views of the buildings back behind. For some reason, I just wasn't seeing that last night. It really didn't look like Wrigley, except for being able to see the ivy on the walls out there. They must be doing some real serious structural changes to it. I understand it's a multi-year project to ultimately get it all done, but seems like to me it took me a while to even figure out that it was Wrigley Field. I thought they might be playing in some different venue because I'd heard they were working on the ballpark.
No, I saw that myself. Yeah, absolutely. Don't get started on that because then you'll get these people hitting me up that don't like the changes at Jacobs Field. I had some conversations this weekend. Some people, look at the big white boxes out there. I can't stand what they did to the stadium. Well, no offense, but if about 30,000 of you more showed up every night, they wouldn't have made any changes to the stadium. So I don't.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that they took I'm kind of surprised they took the capacity all the way down to 35 something.
Yeah, I told you it was lower than you thought. Yeah, I knew it was.
I had heard originally it was going to be 38, 39 or something down from 43, and boy, that chop out 7,000 or 8,000 seats. That's
Well,
they
actually
they
took out
15,
10,
20% of their seats.
They took out closer to 10, but then they moved some and rearranged or something. So the actual sum total was a little bit less. But, yeah, they actually affected even more seats than that in the way they redid it there. But, again, I go back to, hey, you know what? You can't complain. And, by the way, you asked about the lineup. I've searched every source that I've got that usually gets them right away. The Indians are one of only 3 teams in baseball that has not released their lineup for today's game. The Indians, the Rangers, and the Giants are the only ones. I got lineups for every team, all the games tonight, but the Tribe has not yet put theirs out today. So hopefully
they're gonna keep us on pins and needles right up till 5 o'clock or something. Maybe we'll see.
And
how
then
that
they'll
goes.
send a tweet out. That's what the Indians usually do. They send the tweet out when the lineup card's ready, and then there you go. So it's all good. I am so ready to get this going. And what's cool is there's no game tomorrow. They get the big hype and then one day off, and then that thing. So when you and I come back on Wednesday, we don't have another game. Like, we get to talk about opening game, and then we're back at it for real. But so that'll be a lot of fun. We'll know who the national champion is as well. A lot of fun. But man, I can't wait, man. Time can't pass. Bruce just said they got the Sports Time Ohio season preview starts at 6, so they get you a little bit closer to opening pitch. And then what is it? 7:10 is the actual first pitch tonight, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'll be parked in front of it, and later we can wait till later on to catch some basketball. But first things first, let's do this Tribe thing.
Yeah,
I'll be down there. I'll be down there Friday. Looking forward to that, and got my I might want to go down a couple hours early just to go out to right field, which is sort of directly opposite where I sit over on between home and third, and check out the new facilities out there in right field, and can't wait to see that stuff. And I've seen some photos of it, and I don't really care a whole lot about the aesthetics of it, with the white. And I see that upstairs there they have what looks like great big view boxes where people will be able to stand and sort of lean on a rail. It's got a cutout box where they're able to pack a bunch of people in there and have everybody a standing room seat. Standing room seat. That makes sense. But be able to put their drinks up on the rail or whatever, and stand and watch the game in a little cutout box. And they've got several of those running along that upper tier. Figuring, I don't know,
like
there's going to be a lot. Maybe they're underestimating or overestimating the numbers of people that are going to come to the game that aren't going to want to sit down. Who knows? We'll find out.
I think those are also, of course, the standing room, but I think a lot of that is to create wider areas for group pictures, for selfies, for all that, because there was a lot of congestion in the round track throughout there where people would stop, they'd be grouping up, meeting each other, taking pictures, all that stuff, and it congests the traffic through. So I mean, I think part of that, and I think I've heard some of that from the Indians, was to open up more group areas for people to get together, to take their pictures, to tweet, because that seems to be one of the things, and the Indians know they've got their Indians Twitter, and they let Indians Twitter kind of encourage some of the things they do, because the Indians, and this is a rightful philosophy in some ways, have had to, by necessity, adapt to, we're going to cater more to the people that actually come than cater to everybody. And I've got to admit that when you have problems with attendance, that is the philosophy to go to, because I would much rather keep the 12,000 that are showing up every game happy than keep the 30,000 that are sitting at home happy.
No doubt, and and maybe they'll have great success with this $13 ticket that includes your first beer.
First
people
drink
are going to look at that, and they're
team.
going to realize that they've been charging $6 or $7 a beer anyway. So that's really quite a value if you're coming down and getting that beer, which otherwise would cost you a $7 bill. But I hope they do well with it. I hope obviously all the moves they make result in more people down there, because that's what it's all about. That's what we've all been pushing for and hoping for. There's been some rumors and some tweets going on the last few days about a quote unquote abnormally large ticket sale for the second game, and I had to remind some people that abnormally large might just mean 14,000, but hopefully they'll pack some people in for this whole weekend series. It's obviously the Tigers in town, and that's a great draw, and maybe the weather might cooperate. We'll find out, but we ought to be able to put $25,000 per game, minimum, and I'm not talking about an average. 25 per game minimum for that 3-game series. I hope they can do that. If they can do that, I'd probably consider it a success, because so often they sell out the opener and turn around and have 12,000 the next night.
Yeah, I'll tell you, abnormally high. I guess we'll see what that number is there, man. But you got me excited too. Maybe we get a good weekend there, and maybe it'll carry over, man. We'll see. Of course, second day attendance is always the interesting thing to watch. By the way, real quick, just because we talk about it a lot, I don't know what happened here, but I believe the first official at bat in over 2 years or a year and a half, Alex Rodriguez steps up to the plate for the Yankees, and apparently he got himself on base and became how ironic. A walk on a 3-2 count makes Alex Rodriguez the first official base runner for the 2015 New York Yankees. So there you go. And for all the people that say they hate A-Rod, he got a standing ovation from the crowd when he went to the plate. So there you go.
So are they playing in New York?
Yeah, apparently.
Okay. I just wonder, might have been the visiting crowd that gave him a standing O. I don't know.
Well, there you go. No, yeah. So it doesn't matter. Yankees are getting slapped around. Toronto's up 5-0 on them in the third inning. They've gone to town. Reyes is 3 for 6 with a home run to start things off there. And they're rolling early on.
Couldn't happen to a
nicer bunch of guys. Absolutely.
Right.
Go Blue Jays, baby. Anyways, there we go. Dan, let's have some fun, man. Enjoy some Indians baseball. Enjoy the national championship game here tonight, and then we'll be back on Wednesday, and you and I will be able to talk about it all and see where we're at, man. I'm excited. I can't wait. Can't wait for first pitch. Cannot wait for Indians baseball, man. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm a teenager. It's the 90s all over again, man, except the Cavs are good, man. But other than that, man, we're right back at it.
Sounds good, Jerry. I'll look forward to talking to you Wednesday. Thanks for having me as usual.
As always, have a blast this week. We'll see you on Wednesday, Dan. My man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan, with us every Monday and Wednesday here on the Sports Fix. You guys are, of course, you are the Sports Fix. Sit tight. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, let's wrap this bad boy up. I'll crack the phones. I know I missed a few calls during the show. If anybody wants to get in, I'll leave it open. 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Hit us up, Facebook and Twitter. What do you think? Give me some Indians predictions for the season. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. When we come back, talk about the Monsters over the weekend. Gladiators, they're starting undefeated. Hey, some undefeated football in Cleveland. It has to be springtime, baby. Gladiators football. We'll talk about that, set the stage for tomorrow and more. Don't go anywhere. Still more Sports Fix coming up next.
If you say hi, we'll hide.
Yo, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I wanna really, really, really wanna.
Listen to the Sports Fix
if you wanna be my lover.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events, Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks, and every day of the week there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's Fantasy Sports Superstore, FantasyJocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
In baseball, miracles can happen when a team works together.
2 out, bottom of the ninth, down to their last strike.
The same is true in the fight against cancer. That's why MLB has teamed up with Stand Up to Cancer. Because we believe that when we all stand up together,
41,000 on their feet,
we can make cancer history.
Now everybody's standing.
What a buzz in this building.
This is beyond a dream. Stand up with MLB at standuptocancer.org.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
This is the Sports Fix. What is your name?
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Dude, what do you want?
Well, it's this rug I have. It really tied the room together.
We are not a show to be swept under the rug. We are a show to be heard.
It's the Sports Fix.
This is how we do it.
Welcome back. Yeah, that's right. This is how we do it. Welcome back to the Sports Fix. J-Rocc back with you. I had to chuckle. I heard that when he came up to bat, the ESPN announcers for Alex Rodriguez had to actually use the phrase on an MLB broadcast. He's theoretically now no longer using performance-enhancing substances. Like you can't even pussyfoot around. You can't even say, well, he's not. You can't. Only a fool would say he's clean. You could never. I mean, this is a guy's been caught and proven and all of that stuff. So only an idiot would go out there and ruin his reputation. So, but you gotta love that we've come to that point that it's just like an acceptable line that one of the stars comes up to the plate and the announcer just casually goes, and he's theoretically not on performance-enhancing drugs anymore. Like, we can't even say that with a straight face. That's the world we live in 2015, man. Anyways, I love it. I agree with people that say that if you in any way are supporting of an A-Rod or any of these guys that fit in that category, you're not a baseball fan. You don't care about the sport, and I don't really have a lot to talk to you about because there's a difference between if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, and literally actively manipulating the game in so many ways, man. And again, I know that I've done a ton more research on performance-enhancing drugs than the casual fan. Like, I understand that, but it doesn't matter. You don't got to do a lot of research, Go read. Go look at the record books. Go read Game of Shadows. Go look. Forget Juiced. Just go read Game of Shadows. Go Google search any of the actual documents of all the things that they've gone through, the levels that they've gone to. I mean, they completely changed the game. You can't fix the damage that's been done, and unfortunately, it's going to continue. If you think the game's completely clean now, you're crazy. None of these sports are completely clean until they have blood tests for HGH in the works. And then guess what? they won't be clean anyway, because the next guy, the next Balco, the next place, as long as there's people that want to find a way to get ahead and they can't do it on their own, they'll find a way to do it. They will always find a way. They will always find a way to do it. There will always be another scandal ahead of the corner. But these sports make me laugh. They don't even catch up to the current scandal, and they act like they're ahead of the game. It is much cleaner, but still. And you think back, to me, it just, you know, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to be the old fuddy-duddy. You've ruined years and years and years and years of legitimate records and actual feats and things that were accomplished, and you've now mixed it up with all of these things that can't be differentiated. And to me, it just really makes the whole it makes the whole statistic book garbage, because you can't delineate at what point we stop taking the stats seriously. You can't. Nobody can. There is no true delineation point, because even if you go before the steroid era, there were still guys using them, just not as much. And I mean, you know, you can find certain guys and point to certain things, but I mean, so what do? Do you say the records only count until 1985? You know what I mean? You can't. So you've now, the whole batch has been poisoned, and there's nothing you can do. And if you're a baseball fan, that should infuriate you to no end. The fact that that guy's still even in the game should infuriate you to no end. There's no place for him. He's getting paid $91 million to be on your TV right now. There's no place in the game for him or guys like him, in my opinion. And I don't know how he hasn't. Well, he doesn't have much of a relationship with a lot of his teammates. But hell, if I was another player, I wouldn't have any love for that guy either, for those very reasons, the damage he's done. You know, you're not a baseball fan if you say, well, that doesn't matter. That does. Yes, it does matter. Yes, it does matter, and it does. So, anyways, but go ahead. I mean, I can't believe they gave him a standing ovation when he came. Even in New York, they should have booed that scumbag out of there, man. Like, he's just got no place in the game. I don't even know if he's still a scumbag or not. He was. Is he? I don't know. Either way, he does not belong on the Major League Baseball field anymore, man. But he can play, and Pete Rose can't. Pete Rose, you can't prove that he actually affected the games that he played in. Literally, every needle that A-Rod stuck in his ass won his team more games, hit himself more home runs, changed the fabric of the record books of your game, and changed teams' winning records. General managers and coaches and management were fired. Players were traded or cut or released, or their careers ended, or all kinds of things happened that can never be fixed because of every game that he played on steroids. And that's one guy on one team, not hundreds of guys on every single team. Think about it from there and tell me how there's a place in the game for him to even play, but Pete Rose can't get in because, and trust me, I'm with that. You keep Pete Rose out, okay, that's fine. Keep him out too, whatever. My point is get out of here. Get out of here. But you know, nobody wants to fight that fight. You got to put, because he's a star. You know why? Because as long as A-Rod's batting in the third inning at 1:00 in the afternoon, then we're talking about it. We're getting mad about it. Everybody's talking about it, et cetera, and so forth. And that's why they don't do the right thing. So that is why I'll have the Pete Rose argument with you. Otherwise, I'm with you. Keep him out of the game. That's fine. But that's why I'll have that argument with you, because at that point, okay, we're saying it's okay. Okay, well, guess what? Pete Rose's suspension has been the longest in Major League Baseball history. He's been suspended for what? About 30 years now? 25 years? Pretty sure that he's served his suspension. If A-Rod only had to serve a season-long plus suspension for what he did, all these other players got off scot-free because there were no rules before for what they did. These minor league players get busted cheating. They lose whole seasons and their whole career gets wiped out. They get caught twice. They don't even make it to the major leagues. And Pete Rose has been on a 25-year suspension and counting. He'd have been better off. If Pete Rose would have snorted cocaine before every game he played, he would have just been known as Charlie Hustle with the drug problem, and now he would be a celebrated American hero who rehabbed his drug problem and became Charlie Hustle again. If he had stuck a needle in his ass before every single game, nobody would have even known about it because nobody cared about steroids during the time that Pete Rose played ball. But had he stuck a needle in his ass before every single game and created his entire career, he'd would be allowed to be voted for in the Hall of Fame. He'd be allowed to be in the game right now. But we're giving standing ovations to A-Rod and paying him $91 million because none of us have the balls to go to court and say, somebody tell me why I should have to pay this man this money when he committed fraud to get me to sign this contract, because that is what every one of those players did when they cheated and did what they did to get the fake statistics that they got, that they took to the negotiating table and cashed in those fake statistics for very real money. Very real money for very fake statistics, So that's fraud. But nobody, because the players' union is so damn strong that nobody, not even the vaunted New York Yankees legal team, will go to court and say, I dare somebody to tell me that I have to pay this fraud this money. Because if I called you up right now and said, I'm the greatest, blah, 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 whatever. Let's say you need you need your porch fixed. And I called you up and I said, hey, I'm a free agent porch fixer. And you go, really? Tell me about yourself. And I'm like, I'm the best porch fixer there is. I fix porches at a level that people don't even know about. Really? Show me some examples, and I'll show you some work that I did. Well, really, I had, this secret, whatever. I had something that you didn't. Anyways, whole point is that you hire me, and then I put this rickety thing together, and you come home and you go, what is that? Well, this is the porch you paid me to build. You go, no, I was under the impression of, well, just because it didn't come out like I told you doesn't mean you don't still owe me the money. Bull! He's going to take me to court. He's going to show a picture of that rickety, busted-ass porch that I just built, and a judge is going to go, in no way do you have to pay this man. Not only that, but he needs to give you the money that you already paid him back so that you can go get the services of a real porch fixer. But nobody has taken that step yet in baseball, and I will cheer the day when some teams finally takes one of these players to court and says, I am not going to be forced to pay you all of this money because you fraudulently induced me into signing this contract. I mean, and you can tell, but you know what? You know why those teams will never get that money back? Because any judge with a common sense would look at them and say, why didn't you drug test them? And they'll say, well, there's policies involved. And then they'll say, well, then there's something wrong with your policies, because at the end of the day, it was your right to drug test them. And just because Major League Baseball doesn't, but that's where the problem comes in, is that the ownership could, not that they cared. It's not like ownership was out there going, hey, I want to drug test these guys, but the union won't let me. Hell no. But either way, I'm waiting for the day that fight comes, and I really thought it may be A-Rod. I thought that fight may happen, but it never did. But whatever, man. Go ahead, cheer for him all you want. You're definitely not a fan of baseball because guys like him absolutely made a mockery out of your league. Hey guys, I'm going to the phones. I've got callers on the phones here. Caller, you're up on the Sports Fix. What's up?
Yeah, good afternoon, J-Rocc.
Hey, what's happening? This is my man, Bruce. What's up, buddy?
Hey, happy opening day.
That's right. Same to you, my man. I'm done preaching about Alex Rodriguez, man. Happy opening day, good. Baby.
No, I don't have any love or anything for A-Rod, actually. But you got to admit, though, they're Yankee fans, and they don't quite understand the game the way it's supposed to be played anyway. So
why would they cheer a man who is going to steal? Not that I care about billion-dollar franchises losing their money, but on top of what he did in the past, you owe this guy. He's handcuffed your $90 million for whatever. How in the?
Well, what about the Texas Rangers that originally paid him that huge contract?
Well, this is a second one, though. The Yankees did this one all by themselves here. But, no, I'm with you. I totally understand that, man. It's just, and I think what's going to be awesomely disingenuous all summer long is anytime A-Rod creeps up on one of these thresholds that are coming up, like when he gets ready to pass Willie Mays or whatever. I mean, how disingenuous will it be to put a picture of Alex Rodriguez on a screen and congratulate him for passing Willie Mays on the home run list and have fans giving him a standing ovation when Willie Mays' home runs were real. He actually played when we just played baseball before there was the chemical enhanced. You know what I mean? How disingenuous can that be? And ESPN will televise it and they'll give him a standing ovation, and I'm just like, wow, man, that's That's some
it's
stuff.
funny how
if you
we
ask
went
me,
from the
man.
love of the game to the love of money. You know, it's
I
just
mean, well, it's more than just that. It's not even just the money, though, man. Like I get
no,
that,
but I mean, you know, if you have to cheat to patent your stats, you know.
And that's what baseball doesn't understand is what they did can never be fixed. Like they can't fix you can't just bar all the records. You can't just wipe out because you can't prove anything. And they did it on purpose that way so that they wouldn't have to kick people out of the game. They stayed willfully ignorant. That's what baseball did. Baseball stayed willfully ignorant for so long.
They also promoted it. I mean,
Well,
Chicks
absolutely,
Dig the
they
Long
knew.
Ball. I mean, there was a
Exactly.
commercial every day.
Oh, I know, because it helped rebuild the popularity of the game, but the price that they paid is the whole history of the 100-plus years of everything that they built, because now you have a co-mingled stat book. That's why I honestly believe that baseball should put a group of historians together, and they should pick a date, pick a delineation point where you believe the true beginning of the steroid era was, whether you think it was in 1985 or 1990, whatever year you pick. And I just think you keep two halves of the record book, and you just keep the pre-19 whatever era record book and the modern era record book. And then that way you can delineate and people can go, oh, well, since 1990, the biggest home run hitter is Barry Bonds, but man, he was on steroids. So, you know what, I think, how do you commingle these records? And this is a stupid argument. Nobody can fix it. You can't fix it. And I just think if I had a game that had been built for 100-plus years and had all this love and respect and this great record book, I'll be damned if I was going to let a bunch of people screw it up, man. But baseball, you know, they wove their own web, and now they have to live with it. There's no reason to talk about it because it can't be fixed.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Kluber's contract.
Damn right. Let's talk. I know you don't like it. You know where I'm at, Bruce.
No, it's not that I don't like it. It's just that I wanted to wait a little bit longer. I wanted to wait like maybe till June or July, you know, around the All-Star break, just to see how he was going to come out the first half of this season.
But that doesn't happen. The Indians don't do that, first off. I think you know that. The Indians don't like to do anything once the season begins. They always set the cutoff, and I mean, very rarely.
And then they don't talk to him again until the following season.
So what happens if he has another Cy Young season? I mean, then next year you're paying him 5 years at $70 million instead of $38 million. You know what I mean? Like, I think that was the decision that the Indians had to make. I think they knew that they were going to sign a contract sometime in the next 12 months. They knew that they were going to commit to Corey Kluber, and it was a matter of, do we do it now and maybe save $15 or $20 million over the course of the contract, or like you said, do we wait? Because I think they could have waited, and I don't think it would have went into six figures or anything. It wouldn't have been, or triple digits, but it wouldn't have been 38.5. It would have been 5 years, much closer to $60 million or something like that. You would have easily added a few $1 million a year, and I think that's the decision that the Indians made. Is we're willing to save ourselves a few bucks. We think we're sure enough. But, like we were saying, Bruce, I mean, even if he's just a run-of-the-mill pitcher at $7 million a season, that doesn't hurt you. That doesn't hurt you.
No,
in
not at
today's
all.
economy.
No, I totally agree with the money, the Kluber, attitude, the whole 9 yards. I totally agree with it. But, I just would have liked to waited a little bit longer. But the thing that is kind of like the selling point for me on Kluber is that he actually wants to pitch in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I talked to my wife, and I talked to my agents, and this is where I want to be. And, how often does that happen, that somebody actually says, look, I'll take a lot less money just to stay right where I'm at.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, if this contract, if he does what I hope he's going to do in his career, you can bet that 5 years from now we're going to be sitting here going, do the Indians give Kluber $300 million? You know what I mean? Or it'll be one of those, because then you become that guy when you get to the back end of this. And, of course, that's when they leave and they go to play
but then that's when you remind them that, look, one time you said you wanted to pitch here, you know.
But at that point, the bubble bursts on anybody eventually. You know what I mean? Like, Scherzer, when you get to that level that you're making the economy of a small country, the economics change a bit. So, but by that point, you're talking 33 years old or whatever. You're talking, a long time from now. But I'm with it. It's got me. I look at the core group of players, Bruce. This is as close to doing what they did in the 90s as you can do again, except they didn't. This isn't a crapshoot. They're not just signing anybody that's willing to sign. They've identified a group of 8 players here, and they put their money where their mouth is, man. And this group is together at least through 2017.
Exactly. And, all we need is, to go out and get a couple of free agents like, let's say, Dennis Martinez or Eddie Murphy. That's what we did. We brought up our kids, and then we filtered in the veterans to, solidify the lineup.
And I know it's not the same as El Presidente, but I think that was what Gavin Floyd was supposed to be. He was to that veteran arm that they were going to kind of drop in the middle of this young rotation to kind of give him a little seasoning and a little bit of a sagey old guy that they can, talk to in the, what I mean? Kind of that veteran, and they don't have it now, which could be good. Yeah, you're going with all young guys, but that was that similar idea. But that's my other thing I was saying with Dan, is that it opens up enough payroll in the future that if the Indians maintain this core and they keep winning, then you open up all of a sudden, it doesn't kill you to go out there and get a big ticket guy, because your big ticket guys aren't hugely overrated. You know what I mean? Like, not that you necessarily will ever break the bank, but, you have that luxury now of going out there and spending a few extra bucks or tying up a couple of other guys. To me, had this contract been double, that's different. If we're dropping $70-80 million, man, then I'm going, wow, this could be Nick Swisher territory if it doesn't. But when I looked at those numbers, 20-something and then 38.5 for the two of them, and I'm like, you know what? Even if these guys are just okay, that's standard baseball money,
Right. Now, the first thing that came to my mind when this contract came down was Wayne Garland.
Well, I agree with you. I know that. They made the big long-term commitment to him, but, people act like Corey Kluber was going to be $500,000 next year. When he hits arbitration, assuming that he has another good season, it's not like an arbitrator is going to go, yeah, you can go ahead and pay him $750,000 next year. Hell no. He will instantly jump into the 7 figures and maybe double digits from there.
Exactly, and we basically are a small market, supposedly, and we didn't want to go through that, and then you end up with a CC or Clip Lee all over again.
Think about it. If Corey Kluber, let's say not the same as last year, but let's say he has 75% of the season that he does last year, and then he hits arbitration. You've got to know that his salary is just going to jump, even though he won't be. Yeah, okay, he won't be making $20 million a year, but he easily jumps to what we're paying him in arbitration. He would instantly jump to at least, I think, $7 or $8 million right off the bat in arbitration.
No doubt. I was thinking $7 million, the minute that the contract was signed. It was like, this is kind of like a bargain at the moment.
Yeah, because some people, I was talking to some guys yesterday, and I'm like, I think people are under the impression that the Indians could have kept him for less than $1 million a year for the next couple of years. Like, no, absolutely not. That works for the first 2 years, and then when they become arbitration eligible, then a judge goes, hey, this is fair market value, and instantly he becomes a much more expensive player. So the Indians didn't just throw away a bunch of money. They, at most, they cost themselves one season. They definitely could have got one more cheap season out of Corey Kluber, but I just think that by making the deal now, maybe they save themselves $10-15 million next year.
That is true. And, how often do you pass on a Cy Young Award winner at that price?
Damn right. I mean, I know he's not Max Scherzer, but when you look at those numbers and you go 7 years, $210 million, 5 years, $38 million, you're like, hey, man, all right, I mean, really, I got to be honest with you. When I got the word Indians had reached a deal with Kluber, I didn't have any terms, and I'm like, okay, cool. And that's what I was waiting for is, okay, well, let's see what kind of commitment. When I saw the contract, I'm like, get out, really? He gave them a better deal. He sure as hell was more willing to play here than Justin Masterson was, I mean, he definitely...
Well, I was against the Masterson deal from the start. I thought that was way too much money to pay for somebody that was under 500 lifetime.
Oh, I hear you.
And, he never really impressed me. He had a couple of great outings and then a couple of bad ones right afterwards, Yeah. He was never consistent.
I liked him. I can't lie. I liked him. I was a Masterson guy. I liked him. He never took it to that next level that I thought he was capable of, and he always stayed, like you said, he stayed around a 500 pitcher. Anytime he would try to break out from there, he would fall back to the pack, and it just always finished out about around a 500 season.
And he would always average 1 run an inning, no matter what he did.
He had a good year. You could know for sure that the next year he would bounce back, and the two together would equal 500. It never failed, man. I mean, and he can bounce back. By the way, Dan was right. There's nothing that says that he doesn't have a good season this year.
No, there's nothing that says that because he had a bad season last year, so it's only fitting that he has a good one this year.
And the good thing about it is we're not paying him $17 million a year to find out.
And we don't have to face him that often because he's in a different division. So
right. All right, Bruce, how you feeling, man? Tonight, opening day, baby.
Yeah, it's like I didn't think I was going to survive the winter, but apparently I did. I look for 87 to 89 wins, and I'm ready to get started.
All right, man, and it's on tonight, man. So so that's where you're at on the season. Who do you got winning the division? You think it's the Tribe, or you think it's somebody else?
I believe that the Tribe can win it if we get off to a fast start. I believe that Chicago is going to battle us all year.
Yeah, I think Chicago. A lot of people are sleeping on them. I'm with you.
So
they're not going to win the division.
Where I'm looking for the Washington Nationals to win the World Series, though.
Yeah, a lot of people think that this is the year that they thought Washington was going to have last year. A lot of people think that this may be that season.
But don't fall asleep on the Padres, who traded, their whole team.
I mean, what did you say? 25 acquisitions this offseason for the Padres? I mean, that is
spring training. Just before spring training.
Well,
they started.
Plus, what they did before that, man. I mean, I'm with you. They definitely they're going for it. That's for sure. They are going for it.
I'm telling you, that's a general manager that definitely earned his money.
The Friars, man, they're not playing around up there, man. Can they make it happen? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, man? I mean,
I think they're going to have a good year. I'm not sure they have enough to pull it off, though. But let's see. They got the best closer in the game now, so.
You like Kimbrell, huh?
Yep. I liked him when he was in Atlanta. And
they had to take $50 million of Melvin Upton to go with it, though, man. I mean, that was
there's
nuts,
a player, that everybody sought after a couple of years ago. Now he's a throw-in in a deal.
Upton? Oh, yeah. Upton was actually, that was the sacrifice. It was, if you want Kimbrell, you have to take Upton and his contract, and still look at what the Padres ate on that trade. They brought in like $84 million in the two players. They sent out 20 some. They still took in about $55 or $60 million in salary in that trade there, man. I mean, the Padres have all of a sudden started playing with the big boys this year, man.
And two of their top prospects went to Atlanta.
Oh, absolutely. That's a hefty price to pay. And, I know that in Atlanta it sucks to be Braves fans right now because you know what you're about to suffer through. When your team sends out its closer, you know you're losing 100 games because a closer is a luxury for a team that's going to win some games. And when you're only going to win about 60 or 70 games, you don't really need a closer. And I think that, and I hate it because I love Atlanta. I mean, I know they beat the Indians, but I mean, I've always liked the Braves for the most part. I mean, I loved Cox and all those years that he was there. I loved that pitching staff that they had, and so I've got a soft spot for Braves fans, man. They are about to suffer through some bad baseball for sure, man. It's going to throw them back to the days of
the $200 million payroll to get a winning team.
Well, there it is, but it's going to throw them back to the days of watching those games on the Superstation when Ted Turner and some of those bad Braves. I think Ted managed.
Now, come on, those are great. Those are great games. You got to watch the Braves every night.
Every night on the Superstation, and then Ted managed them for a while, man. He said, "What the hell? It's my team. I'm going to go out here and manage them, man." In between driving his America's Cup boat, he was out there managing baseball teams. I got to love an entrepreneur like Ted Turner. But anyways,
no doubt.
That's one of
the
reasons.
Guy, he kept an eye on his investment.
To be honest, talking about the Superstation, I grew up obviously a huge wrestling fan. The three staples of the Superstation TBS, it was built on Andy Griffith, the Andy Griffith Show, Braves baseball, and pro wrestling. Those were the three staple programs that Ted Turner used to grow WTBS from a small Atlanta station into the Superstation. Those were the three. So because I always watched 605 on Saturday nights, I always watched the championship wrestling there, the Braves. That was their channel. So wrestling would get preempted for Braves games. When Braves games would go into extra innings, you'd have to wait for it. So I became the Braves became like my second favorite team. I figured, well, Indians, Braves, we're all in the same tribe together anyway. So the Braves just kind of became
worked out that way.
Yeah, became my team because all those years of growing up and watching wrestling, they were the Braves, and I always had a soft spot for the Hawks because they also aired all the Hawks games. So I watched a lot of Dominique Wilkins era Atlanta Hawks basketball. But anyways, just crazy, how you. But anyways, they're going to suffer. That fan base is going to suffer for a year or two here, maybe 3 or 4 before they start turning it around. Because unfortunately, in baseball, you can't fix it in one summer like the Cavs did, man. You can't just sign LeBron James and turn the world upside down. In baseball, when you tear it down, it usually takes several seasons to build it back up because you're starting from the draft. And in baseball, Bruce, when you draft people in baseball, it's 4 or 5 years before most of those guys are truly developing, and even the fast ones.
It's not like the guy's going to step in and take over the next day,
No, this isn't like Mel Kiper going, this guy can step on the field tomorrow. We're still trying to get Lindor on the field, and he's been going at it for a couple of years now. So Braves fans are going to suffer, but I don't think the Indians are. I think we're going to have some fun this year. I think we got a good season, Bruce.
I'm looking for an exciting season myself. So,
all right, my friend. Anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right, Bruce, enjoy the game. Time. Give me a call tomorrow. We'll talk about it. My man, Bruce, great phone call, man. Indians baseball tonight. Before we go, Monsters hockey over the weekend. Monsters back at it tomorrow. They should have grabbed some points. They lost in overtime to the Marlies here. Cost themselves a bit. Monsters have 7 games remaining, but now they sit 5 points back from the 8th playoff spot with 7 games remaining. They've got Chicago coming up here. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll get Doug Plagans on here during the week. Monsters had some opportunities here, split those games with Milwaukee, and then fell in overtime. Back-to-back overtime losses for the Monsters to the Admirals and then to the Marlies. Hopefully they can get it together here with 7 games left and grab some points. That's 14 potential points remain for the Monsters, and they're 5 points out of the final playoff spot. We'll talk about that some more. Speaking of fellow compatriots at the Q, looking to keep things rolling. The Gladiators 2-0 to start the season. Remember that incredible season they had last year, taking it all the way to the Arena Bowl. Gladiators football back in action here as the Gladiators headed down to New Orleans. They went down to the Smoothie King Center and knocked off the Voodoo. That's one of my favorite Arena League names, the New Orleans Voodoo, 70-42. Glads are 2-0. Now they come back home. The tournament had them out of the queue. They make their Quicken Loans Arena debut, their home opener against defending champions Arizona, the team that knocked off the Gladiators last season. And we'll talk about that here a little bit later this week. But a big victory for the Glads, 70-42. All kinds of good things going on, guys. Tonight, I don't think you need me to remind you that there's a couple of interesting things to watch on your television sets. There's a basketball game between nope. Kentucky out. Duke, Wisconsin. Tonight, national championship game. Indians, Astros, 7-10, Corey Kluber on the mound. Tomorrow, Jeff Gorman from Indians101.com's here. We'll break down the opening game of the Indian season tonight. We'll talk about the first appearance of Corey Kluber. Dr. Football's in the house tomorrow joining us. We'll talk about the latest going on in the world of football and the Browns and so much more. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll talk about the national champion in hockey, the Indians opener, and so much more. Same bad time, same bad channel, live at noon tomorrow on the Sports Fix. Thanks for being here with us, guys, across the Sports Fix Radio Network, a supersized Indians opening day edition of the show. We love you, Cleveland and beyond. Party hardy tonight. Enjoy the games, and we'll see you tomorrow live, noon, right here on the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland. We love you beyond. See you.